Tomorrow is the first day of registration at university. While his parents are not at home, Ethan decides to secretly fly to school by helicopter to register. He sent a message to the freshman group. "Teacher, can I report by helicopter tomorrow?" The reaction in the group was almost instant. "This classmate is so pretentious. Ethan, if you can really come by helicopter, I will pay for your food expenses for a year. Can you bring my aircraft carrier with you?" There were constant laughter, and even the teacher advised him to keep a low profile. Everyone treated it as a joke. Only he knew that he had been bound by the system task, and reporting for the helicopter was his first task. He sighed helplessly. He didn't know what would happen at school next, nor did he know how to explain the helicopter incident to his parents when they came back. Hi everyone, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share. If you like this story, please let me know in the comment section. I will update the next part. The next day, at the freshman reception of Donghai University, the campus beauty Clara was busy. She was assigned to welcome the freshmen, but she rejected the approaches of 18 boys one after another, and she felt exhausted. "If I had known this earlier, I would rather not take this task," she thought to herself. Just as she was about to take a break, a sudden noise broke out among the crowd. "Fuck! Ferrari's supercar!" The second-generation rich are reporting their aura is different. A cool Ferrari stopped at the school gate, and a well-dressed, high-spirited young man walked out of the car. He locked on a Clara at first sight, stepped forward, and smiled confidently. "Senior Song, can you take me to handle the formalities?" Clara took a step back, her face cold. "Excuse me, are you from the Chinese department?" "No, I'm from the sports department." Knowing that the other party was not from the same department, Clara pointed to the other side and said, "The welcome volunteers from the sports department are over there." However, the rich second-generation man was not willing to give in. "Senior, I applied to this university because of you." As soon as the words fell, the surrounding onlookers suddenly became enthusiastic. "Money can do anything you want. I'm impressed by this way of picking up girls." Just when everyone thought this farce would continue, a low roar came from a distance. The sound got closer and louder. What's that sound? Fuck! Is that a helicopter?" A helicopter descended from the sky and landed steadily on the playground. The crowd went wild. "Oh my God! Someone really came to report in a helicopter." "Where are you, my friend who just said he was going to eat the table?" In the cockpit, he adjusted his expression and took a deep breath. Mission accomplished. All the hard work was not in vain. Then he opened the cabin door, walked down calmly, and went straight to the reception point of the Chinese department. Witnessing all this, Song Wanshuang couldn't help but widen her eyes. Someone actually came to the school in a helicopter. Congratulations to the host for completing the task for the first time. Revat, Shuyan Yayu Yunsuyan Villa. The key is in your pocket, and the property certificate and related information are in the first drawer of the villa study. Hearing the system's prompt, he breathed a sigh of relief, finally completing this ridiculous task. Yesterday, the system suddenly popped up and asked him to report to the school by helicopter. This was simply a fantasy for him, but the task was ahead, so he had to bite the bullet and do it. His parents were out traveling at the time and didn't see that there was suddenly a helicopter at home, otherwise they would definitely be scared. In order to keep a low profile, he didn't even pack his luggage and flew directly to the school by helicopter. But now it seems that this is even more eye-catching than being high profile. After calming down, he got off the helicopter and followed the instructions to find the reporting point for the Chinese department. At the same time, Clara stood in the crowd, watching the helicopter landing in the distance, her eyes full of astonishment. She never expected that someone would really come to school by helicopter, and this person was a freshman in the Chinese department. Alex, who was standing by, was also shocked by the scene. A rich second generation? He actually used a helicopter to steal the limelight and wanted to snatch Clara from him? Ethan walked towards the orientation volunteers, and when he saw Clara wearing a volunteer badge, he politely asked, "Hello, senior. I'm a freshman in the Chinese department. Is this where I should report?" Clara was stunned for a moment, but after coming to her senses, she nodded quickly. Yes. The boy standing in front of her was dressed in ordinary clothes, but his demeanor was humble and polite, forming a wonderful contrast with the helicopter behind him. Clara calmed down a little and continued, "What's your major?" "Chinese language and literature." "What a coincidence. I'm also majoring in Chinese language and literature." Clara smiled and said, "I'll take you to handle the formalities." Alex gnashed his teeth as he watched the two of them leave. He stared at Ethan's back, suppressed his anger, and said sarcastically, "You rented the helicopter, didn't you? You must have spent a lot of money to show off your wealth, didn't you?" This caused the people around to whisper, and some began to question Ethan's true identity. Facing the gazes of the crowd, Ethan just smiled calmly. If you think it is, then it is. Alex became more and more proud when he saw this. He was about to continue to ridicule, but he saw a middle-aged man in a suit and tie squeeze into the crowd, walked straight to Ethan, and said respectfully, "You are Mr. Lin, right? I finally found you." The middle-aged man wiped the sweat from his forehead and introduced himself. "I am the management specialist of the private helipad in Nanwan, Donghai City. I am responsible for receiving your private plane. I am late because of the traffic jam. Please forgive me." These words stunned the people around him, and Alex froze in his tracks. A private helipad? A dedicated administrator? For a moment, the previous speculations about renting seemed ridiculous. Ethan's mind. Friendly reminder. Private helipad and management services are bonus items for helicopters. He finally understood the whole story and breathed a sigh of relief. Nodding slightly to the middle-aged man, he said calmly, "Thank you for your help. I'll leave the plane to you." "Ethan? Awesome. Is it true? A retired captain is a management specialist? Wait, let me check. Fuck, it's true. Zhou, there are photos." After a few seconds of silence, everyone around them looked strange. Even Alex's face turned from pale to blue. Everyone realized that Ethan's words, "if you think it is, then it is," were clearly mocking Alex. "You can say whatever you want. I don't care about you. How about it? Are you angry?" "Yes." "Fuck, forget about the helicopter. Even a retired captain works for him." This winner in life doesn't even need to start from the starting line. He can just stand at the finish line. "I'm jealous. This guy really has everything under the lemon tree." Where are the people who just said they rented a helicopter? Why are they all shut up? Just stop talking. Master Ferrari's face is turning green. Alex's face darkened. On the other side, Clara stared at Ethan in a daze. The sunlight shone on his distinct profile, as if time had stopped. She suddenly thought, this junior is so handsome. He is rich and low-key, mature and reserved, which completely subverts her stereotype of the rich second generation. Alex was silent for a moment, and finally lowered his head. "I was blind and didn't recognize a great man just now. I'm sorry for causing you trouble." Although he was unwilling, he was not a fool. He could see that Ethan had a complicated background, and confronting him head-on would only bring humiliation. However, the spectators were not happy. The second-generation rich are competing, and the helicopter boss is the winner. "I told you, this guy can't be a liar." "Yeah, a retired captain is a specialist, a top-notch configuration." Facing Alex's apology, Ethan waved his hand casually and smiled. "It's okay, I don't care." This lighthearted remark made Alex feel so frustrated that he felt that in Ethan's eyes, he was not even a role. In full view of everyone, Alex fled. Clara watched all this and had a higher opinion of Ethan. He was low-key, calm, steady, and tolerant, which was a far cry from Alex. Ethan didn't care about these. He handed the helicopter key to Zhou and went to report with Clara. On the campus path, the sweet-scented osmanthus trees exuded a refreshing fragrance. Clara suddenly stopped and turned to look at Ethan. "Junior, thank you for what you did just now." Ethan was stunned for a moment, then smiled. "I didn't do anything. You're too polite, senior." This senior is really cute. With fair skin and delicate features, she has a unique beauty under the sun. And from Ethan's perspective, you can see an even more beautiful scenery. Chapter 4. The senior is shy. Ethan looked at Clara and couldn't help but sigh. Although she was thin, she had everything she needed. She was really angel face, devil figure. He sighed in his heart that this goddess-like school beauty must be the dream lover of countless boys. After running around the freshman registration, Ethan was already starving. He took the initiative to say, "Senior, it's time for dinner. You've helped me so much. Why don't we have dinner together? I'll treat you." Clara was stunned for a moment, then smiled. "You want to treat me?" "Of course." Ethan nodded with a sincere attitude. "Okay." She agreed happily. Although she was not used to eating alone with the opposite sex, the feeling Ethan gave was completely different from those persistent suitors. "Let's add WeChat, shall we? It will be easier for us to contact each other in the future." Clara took out her phone and added considerately, "I'll send you the electronic map of the school first. It's made in-house and is much more detailed than the one on the internet." Ethan smiled and said, "Okay, thank you, senior." The two quickly added each other on WeChat. After Ethan sent his name, he casually praised, "Ethan, senior sister's name is really nice. There is a beautiful person, clear and graceful, which fits her temperament very well." Clara's eyes flashed with surprise. She didn't expect that this junior student not only had a unique vision, but also could immediately see the illusion of her name. It was rare. She smiled. Thank you for the compliment. At this moment, Ethan suddenly approached and whispered, Senior, don't move. Clara was stunned and slightly nervous. What is he going to do? Ethan raised his hand and pinched a sweet-scented osmanthus flower from her head. Senior, there are flowers in your hair. Huh. Clara blushed and smiled awkwardly. Thank you. She actually misunderstood what he meant just now, and she was so upset that even the tips of her ears were tinged with red. Ethan smiled secretly. This senior is really cute. Afterwards, the two went to the Chinese restaurant Chui Yu Xian near the campus. As soon as Ethan entered the door, he was amazed by the antique decoration. The air was filled with sandalwood, and several women in ancient costumes played musical instruments on the stage. The atmosphere was elegant and charming. After sitting down, Clara ordered a few dishes, and Ethan also ordered a few dishes at random. Soon, a table of delicious dishes was served. The aroma alone was enough to make people salivate. While eating, Clara suddenly remembered something and reminded, By the way, Ethan, you freshmen will have a class meeting tomorrow. Don't forget it. Class meeting? Ethan raised an eyebrow. Important? Why? Clara smiled and said mysteriously, You'll know tomorrow. Chapter 5, Drunk. Ethan looked at Clara, but he didn't expect her to explain. Seriously. The class leaders of the university will be selected tomorrow. Once they are decided, they will not be changed for 4 years. More importantly, class leaders have many more privileges than ordinary students. The word privilege was emphasized, and she added, The first impression of the counselor is also crucial. If you have a good relationship with the counselor, your 4 years in college will be much smoother. Ethan was slightly stunned and laughed in his heart. So there is such a saying. He shook his head and smiled calmly. Thank you for reminding me, senior sister, but I like freedom, privileges, and so on. Forget it. Clara looked at him in surprise. Nowadays, there are so many people who are trying their best to become class leaders, but Ethan in front of her looked so nonchalant, which was really rare. She suddenly became a little curious about this Buddhist junior. What would happen if such a person got angry? Ethan was frightened by her stare and couldn't help asking, Senior, is there something on my face? Clara came back to her senses and quickly looked away, her face slightly red. No. To hide her embarrassment, she took the cup and took a sip. Unexpectedly, the cup contained fruit wine, which was quite strong. After a while, the effect of the fruit wine began to show. Clara's face quickly turned red, and even her eyes looked a little blurry. Ethan looked at her drunken appearance and couldn't help shaking his head and laughing. Senior sister, you have such a low alcohol tolerance, you'd better not drink anymore. Can I take you home? Okay. Clara just stood up. Her feet went weak, and she almost fell. Fortunately, Ethan was quick to catch her. Thank you. Thank you. She stammered, her voice as thin as a mosquito's buzz, and the blush on her face deepened a little. Ethan sighed softly. Senior, you won't be able to walk steadily like this. Let me support you. Clara nodded shyly. Thank you for your help. No trouble. Ethan helped her out of the restaurant and hailed a taxi to take her back to school. When they returned to the school, Ethan supported the drunk Clara as they walked on the road, which immediately attracted countless attention. Isn't it the school beauty Clara? Who's the guy next to her? Isn't that her boyfriend? Oh my God. Didn't School Beauty Song say she wouldn't have a boyfriend while in school? Why is she making an exception right after school starts? There were many discussions, and some even lamented. Alas, my goddess was snatched away by someone else. Chapter 6. Waterfront Residences Between Clouds and Water. Ethan sent Clara to the downstairs of the girls' dormitory, but the scene around him made him laugh. Couples were reluctant to leave, as if no one was around, and even just a few meters away, some people were kissing passionately without any hesitation. He silently gave a thumbs up in his heart. College life is really awesome. Clara was too embarrassed to even look up. She said goodbye hastily. We're at the dormitory. I'll go back first. Ethan nodded, and the two waved goodbye. Clara rushed into the dormitory building, walking as fast as if she was running for her life. Ethan did not return to the dormitory, but went straight to the most luxurious villa area in Donghai City, Shuian Yajian Shuijian. This place is surrounded by mountains and rivers and has picturesque scenery. Every villa is priceless, and even the property management team is top-notch. It is known as the ultimate standard for the upper class in Donghai City. Soon as he reached the door, Ethan was stopped by the security guard. "Hello, sir. Outsiders need to register." Before he finished speaking, the security guard was suddenly stunned. He quickly compared the photo in his hand, and his tone immediately became extremely respectful. You are Mr. Ethan?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "It's me." The security guard suddenly became nervous. "It's you, the VIP of Yunshuijian. I was short-sighted just now and didn't recognize you. Please forgive me." Yunshuijian, as the top-floor villa of Shuein Yaju, had an astonishing price, and no one was interested in buying it until Ethan bought it in full. This event shocked the entire property team. Ethan waved his hand casually. "It's okay. Which direction is Yunshuijian?" The security guard immediately pointed the way. "It's at the northern end. The most luxurious villa is Yunshuijian. Do you need a guide?" The security guard asked tentatively. Ethan paused and nodded. "Thank you for your help." The security guard was flattered and immediately used the pager to arrange for someone to take over his post and personally lead Ethan. Along the way, he talked endlessly about the environment and facilities of Waterside Yaju, which helped Ethan understand his new home a little better. Soon, the clouds and water came into view, surrounded by lakes on three sides, with an excellent location, like a small palace, the most expensive and luxurious place in the entire Shuein Yajuli. Ethan thanked the security guard and pushed the door open. The luxurious decoration and fresh sandalwood scent made him feel relaxed and comfortable. In the villa opposite Yunshuijian, in the living room on the second floor, Lily held a glass of red wine and quietly looked at Ethan's new home through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She leaned lazily against the window, her long curly hair casually tied up at her waist. Her peach blossom eyes slightly narrowed, and her tone revealed a bit of doubt. "Is there someone living in Yunshuijian? Didn't they say that this villa is not for sale?" Lily felt a little uneasy. Who is this new neighbor? Chapter 7. Beautiful Neighbor Visits. The view from Yunshuijian is excellent. Lily stood in front of the French window, gazing at the newly occupied villa opposite, with a slight smile on her lips and a playful look in her eyes. "I wanted to buy this villa, but the property management said it was not for sale. How come someone is living here now?" She shook her head, raised her head, and drank the red wine in her glass. She turned around and changed into more decent clothes, thinking to herself, "It seems that this neighbor is not simple. I should go pay him a visit." Meanwhile, Ethan is touring the villa. 3 floors, 700 square meters, private swimming pool, gym, everything. The mansion is really worthy of its reputation. He sat on the large leather sofa, looking at the lake not far away through the huge French window, and there was only one word in his mind: awesome. However, just as he was immersed in the beauty of the villa, the doorbell rang. Ethan frowned slightly and thought, "So fast?" When I opened the door, a beautiful figure instantly came into view. The black one-shoulder miniskirt highlights her curvy figure. Her big chestnut-brown wavy hair is casually draped. Her fiery red lips and enchanting peach eyes make her charm soar to the sky. Ethan was stunned. Wavy curls, Mishiro. Lily was also a little surprised. She had never expected that the man living in Yunshuijian would be so young that he looked less than 20 years old. Lily smiled and took the initiative to say, "Hello, neighbor. My name is Lily, and I live opposite you." She raised her hand and pointed to the villa not far away, her voice soft and with a bit of confidence. Ethan quickly looked away and responded, "Ethan, we were in a hurry and didn't prepare anything. These 2 bottles of red wine are just a small token of my appreciation." Lily handed over the gift box. Ethan couldn't refuse, so he had to accept it. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "Do you want to come in and sit down?" Lily raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Then I'd better obey your command." After entering the villa, Lily glanced at the spacious living room and sighed. The layout of Yunshuijian is indeed excellent. I wanted it at first, but I didn't expect it to be won by a young man like Mr. Lin. She sat down gracefully and lazily, looking at Ethan with a smile. "Judging from your appearance, you are probably in your early 20s at most?" Ethan smiled calmly, just turned 20. Lily smiled even more deeply and teased softly, "You're really my little brother." She leaned against the sofa with a mischievous look in her eyes. "Since we're neighbors, don't be so formal. How about calling me sisterly?" Ethan was startled and couldn't help laughing. "Sisterly, right? It seems that this neighbor is not easy to deal with." Chapter 8. He was teased. Ethan looked at Lily's teasing eyes and felt confused for a while. He felt as if he was being teased. After thinking for a moment, he still said obediently, sisterly. Lily instantly burst into laughter. Hey, good boy. Ethan was even more confused now, thinking, how low is her sense of humor? Is there anything funny? Just when the atmosphere was a little strange, Lily's cell phone rang. After answering 2 yes and okay, she apologized to Ethan and said, Brother, I have an urgent meeting at the company. I will come to play with you next time. Ethan nodded and walked her to the door. Seeing Lily off, he washed up, lay down on the soft bed, and soon fell asleep. The next morning, Ethan woke up and found that Clara had sent him several messages. Clara, thank you for taking me back yesterday. Clara, dazed.jpg. Clara, observing in secret.jpg. These cute emoticons made Ethan couldn't help laughing. After chatting for a few minutes, he put down his phone and prepared to face a day of campus life. Class meeting time. Ethan found the classroom according to the electronic map sent by Clara, and found that he arrived a little late, and the classroom was almost full. As soon as he sat down in a random seat, he smelled a faint scent of jasmine, mixed with the body fragrance of a girl, which made him feel inexplicably happy. He turned his head and saw that the girl next to him was visibly stiff and moved slightly away. Ethan noticed her little movement and took the initiative to greet her. Hello, classmate. My name is Ethan. What's yours? The girl looked up at him, then quickly lowered her head and said in a voice as thin as a mosquito, Sue, Emma. Ethan raised an eyebrow. M.O. and Jasmine? She nodded, but her ears turned red. Ethan was happy. I didn't expect that in this open era, there are still such shy girls. It's really rare. After a few seconds, Emma couldn't help but whispered, How did you guess that? Ethan chuckled. You smell like Jasmine. Emma was stunned and looked at him nervously, but Ethan pointed to the student card on the table and said, Your student card is on the table, and your name is clearly written on it. Emma panicked instantly and quickly put away her student card. Just as she was about to say something, the acting head teacher appeared. The acting class teacher was a senior from the same department. He wore black-framed glasses and had a gentle and refined scholarly temperament. After a brief self-introduction, the class leader election began. Ethan was not interested in these things, so he simply looked around and found that most of his classmates were playing with their phones. Suddenly, a pen fell to the ground with a click. He looked down and happened to meet Emma's eyes as she bent over to pick up the pen. The girl's eyes were timid. Ethan raised his eyebrows and smiled. Interesting. Chapter 9. Meeting the Best. Ethan was thinking with his head down when suddenly there was a commotion at the door and everyone's attention was drawn over. Teacher Wong, the head teacher, was walking into the classroom with a tall and cool girl. The girl was wearing a simple and neat white shirt and a black short skirt, and she exuded a strong aura in her every move. Classmates, this is the new student who transferred to our class today, Zhou Yin. Please welcome her. There was a sudden applause in the classroom, and the boys looked at each other with burning eyes and whispered to each other. Isn't this the school beauty Zhou Yin? I heard that she has top grades and is the champion of the national dance competition. And her family is incredibly well off. Her father is a big businessman. Ethan just glanced at her indifferently and was about to lower his head again. But unexpectedly, Zhou Yin looked straight at him. Teacher, can I sit there? Zhou Yin pointed to the empty seat next to Ethan. Teacher Wong was stunned for a moment, then nodded. Of course. Emma heard this. Her hands trembled and the pen fell down. She glanced at Zhou Yin secretly, feeling a little uncomfortable for some reason. Zhou Yin walked gracefully to Ethan's side, smiled slightly, and said naturally, Hello, classmate. My name is Zhou Yin. Ethan was a little surprised, but nodded. Ethan. The whole class was silent for a few seconds, and then the discussion broke out. Why is she talking to Ethan on her own initiative? What kind of luck is this kid, Ethan? Kevin, who was sitting in the back row, looked even uglier. He stared at Ethan, his eyes full of jealousy and resentment. Zhou Yin, did you recognize the wrong person? Kevin couldn't help but try to save the situation. Ethan is just an ordinary student. He even lives off campus. Zhou Yin glanced at him coldly. It's his freedom to live wherever he wants. What does it have to do with you? This sentence instantly left Kevin speechless and his face flushed red. Emma looked at Ethan quietly, with mixed feelings. She wanted to have more contact with Ethan, but she didn't expect Zhou Yin to suddenly appear. At this moment, her mood was like a seasoning bottle overturned, with mixed feelings. Ethan didn't care about it at all. He looked at the book in his hand, calm as usual. But no one noticed that there was a hint of amusement in his eyes. It looks like things are going to get interesting. He chuckled in his heart and lowered his head to continue reading. Campus bell, please join our club. The door of the classroom opened, and Clara walked in gracefully, followed by several seniors. Instantly, the whole classroom was boiling as if it had been injected with electricity. Clara, the campus beauty of Donghai University. She's prettier in person than in the photo. No, she's prettier than in the photo. This is a goddess who has been meticulously crafted. We, as idiots, are not even worthy of breathing the same air as her. Various compliments came one after another, and Kevin couldn't help staring at Clara. His eyes seemed to be glued to her. But he quickly restrained his fiery gaze and sighed. He knew that a goddess like Clara was destined to be an unattainable dream for him. So he decided to settle for the second best and turned his target to the gentle and lovely Emma. At this time, the club recruitment process began. Clara, the president of the Chinese Studies Club, stood on the podium and promoted with passion. The Chinese Studies Club aims to promote traditional culture and provide a platform for every student to communicate and inherit Chinese culture. However, her voice was like a spring breeze, but the audience was unaware of it. Their eyes were fixed on her beauty. After the promotion, Clara walked down the stage with a form. Seeing her walking towards him, Kevin tensed up and sat up straight, his heart beating so fast that it was about to burst out of his chest. Could it be that Senior Sister Song has taken a fancy to me? He was ecstatic. Just as he was immersed in his fantasy, Clara stopped in front of Ethan and smiled gently. Junior, are you interested in joining the Chinese Study Society? Ethan looked up and smiled calmly. With so many people joining in, it doesn't matter if I join in, right? Clara covered her mouth lightly and smiled. If you join, it will be icing on the cake. Oh, then what are the benefits of joining the Chinese Study Society? Ethan asked with a raised eyebrow. Joining the Chinese Study Society can add credits, which will help with final exams and graduation. We will also hold events, and if you win a prize, you will receive a school-level certificate, which will also help with job hunting. Clara explained calmly and sat in the empty seat in front of Ethan, her eyes gentle but firm. Ethan pondered for a moment, picked up a pen, and filled in his name on the form. At this moment, the mentality of the freshmen around him collapsed. Why? They all went through 9 years of compulsory education. Why did Ethan get the school beauty senior to personally invite him and even sit down to explain? Kevin's face was as ugly as a palette, and he gritted his teeth and squeezed out a sentence. Senior Song, I also want to join the Chinese Study Society. Another schoolmate comes. Clara just glanced at Kevin, then turned back and ordered, Xiaoqing, bring a form over to this junior. After saying this, Clara continued chatting with Ethan as if Kevin didn't exist. After a while, a fat senior who weighed at least 200 kilograms came jumping and handed Kevin a form. Kevin was so angry that he almost burst out of his head, but he finally held his breath and picked up the pen and wrote down his name. I'm going to the bathroom, he said, and got up to leave. He couldn't hold it in any longer. If he stayed any longer, he was afraid that he would get hurt from the anger. In the toilet, he smoked a few cigarettes before returning to his seat. Before he could even sit down, he heard Zhang He next to him yell, fuck, which made him frown. What's the matter? Kevin asked impatiently. Someone actually came to our school to report in by helicopter, and he's from the School of Arts. Don't you think it's awesome? Zhang He waved his cell phone excitedly. Kevin curled his lips and said, helicopter? Who can afford it without some money? The fuel cost alone is enough for my living expenses for a semester, and I still have to buy the flight route. Mortals like us don't understand the world of the rich. They didn't know that the tycoon was sitting in front of them, Ethan. Ethan heard these discussions and smiled helplessly. If they knew the truth, their expressions would be as exciting as watching a good show. At this time, the second wave of new members arrived. Sophia at the door took out a makeup mirror to carefully check her makeup, applied lipstick, and raised her head and chest, looking like a queen. The girl next to her teased, Sophia, are you eyeing a junior this time? Sophia smiled slightly. Opportunities only come to those who are prepared. She wore a tight white shirt, an irregular hip skirt, and high heels. She had a curvy figure, delicate makeup, and exuded confidence in her every move. And her target was Ethan. She locked onto Ethan at first sight, secretly delighted. It's him, the helicopter pilot. Under the gazes of many people, Sophia slowly walked towards Ethan with a perfect smile on her face. Ethan, do you remember me? Ethan looked up, frowning slightly. Who are you? The boys around were shocked. First it was the school beauty Clara, and now it was the sexy senior Sophia. They just felt that the world was too unfair. Besides not being as handsome as Ethan, where did they lose? Chapter 12, Rolls-Royce Phantom. Ethan looked up at the sexy senior schoolmate Sophia in front of him and felt that she looked familiar, but he couldn't remember who she was. Sophia, a smile froze for a moment, then returned to normal. I'm Clara's roommate. I was right next to her on the orientation day. Oh. Ethan scratched his head, having no recollection of that. At the time, his attention was all on Clara, and he didn't notice her roommate at all. Hello, senior. Ethan responded politely. Sophia showed joy on her face. Do you remember? Ethan nodded, but tried hard to hide his embarrassment in his heart. The next second, Sophia slapped a form in front of Ethan and placed her hands on the table, giving him a visual impact. Junior, do you want to join our literature club? She winked sweetly. Ethan moved back slightly, secretly complaining in his heart. Help, this benefit is too dizzy. Senior, I just joined a club, and I'm afraid I won't be able to handle it. Unexpectedly, Sophia was not discouraged at all. Instead, she sat in the seat in front of him and smiled charmingly. What club? Can it be better than our literature club? We are the largest club in the Faculty of Arts, and there are so many beautiful girls. Ethan smiled faintly. National Studies Society. Hearing these 3 words, Sophia's smile instantly broke for a second, and she complained in her heart. Clara is a white lotus. She says she doesn't want to fall in love, but secretly she won't even let her prey go. She suppressed her dissatisfaction, moved closer to Ethan, and lowered her voice to seduce him. Junior, aren't you afraid of trouble? How about you just join our literature club and don't have to do anything? Ethan raised an eyebrow. Senior, is this considered a backdoor? Sophia shrugged nonchalantly. You can understand it that way. At this moment, the long-lost system voice sounded in Ethan's mind. Ding. Trigger task. Join the literature club and get a Rolls-Royce Phantom as a reward. Rolls-Royce. Ethan almost jumped up from his chair. This task was too easy. Just joining a club and getting a luxury car for free. How could he refuse? Junior, have you thought about it? Sophia asked in a soft and expectant voice. Ethan regained his composure and nodded with a smile. I've considered it. Join in. Sophia was delighted and immediately handed over the pen. Ethan quickly filled out the form, and the system voice in his mind sounded again. Mission completed. Reward, a Rolls-Royce Phantom. The car is parked downstairs of the Faculty of Arts. The key is in the host's pocket. Ethan reached out and touched a bunch of car keys. He smiled slightly at Sophia and said, Senior, you are really my lucky star. Sophia was stunned for a moment. Then her pretty face turned red, and she said coquettishly, I didn't realize you were so good at teasing people. Chapter 13, I just looked down on you. When the bell rang, Ethan finally breathed a sigh of relief. He waited until most people in the classroom had left before he slowly followed. As soon as he arrived at the bottom of the teaching building, he saw a group of people gathered around a luxury car, as lively as if they were watching a star. Looking closely, isn't that his Rolls-Royce Phantom? There were various exclamations from the crowd. Oh my God, this is a Rolls-Royce Phantom, my dream car. If I could drive it once, it would be worth dying for. Everyone be careful. Don't accidentally scratch it. A scratch could cost hundreds of thousands. Ethan raised his eyebrows and approached silently. In the crowd, Kevin and his roommate Zhang, he were discussing excitedly. Brother Kai, how much does this car cost? Zhang's eyes sparkled. Kevin smiled and explained proudly. The price of the bear car is more than 6 million yuan, and it is even more expensive with optional equipment. The top model may cost tens of millions or more. We can only look at this kind of luxury car and dare not even touch it. Zhang took a deep breath and said, This is worth it. I earned it just by watching it once. As he was talking, Kevin glanced at Ethan standing next to him, rolled his eyes, walked up to him, and said with a bit of sarcasm, Hey Ethan, you like this car too? It's a pity that this kind of luxury car has nothing to do with ordinary people like us. Although I don't have the luck to drive a Rolls-Royce, I have a BMW 5 Series at home, which is not bad. Ethan proudly, only to find that Ethan was staring at him with an expression that said, Look at you as a fool. What are you looking at? Kevin was a little nervous and said in a bad tone, You're looking down on me. Before he could finish his words, he stared in amazement as Ethan took out his car keys, walked towards the Rolls-Royce Phantom, then calmly opened the door and got in. There was a dead silence around them, and then a bigger commotion broke out. Fuck, this car is his? Isn't this the helicopter boss? The freshman who reported in by helicopter. Oh my God, not only can he drive a helicopter at will, he can also buy supercars at will. This is the legendary power of money. Brother, do you need a girlfriend? the kind that is super good and obedient. Ethan started the engine, stepped on the accelerator, and the Rolls-Royce Phantom drove away amid everyone's envious gazes. Kevin was stunned. His face was pale and blue. His mouth opened into an O shape. He finally realized Ethan was not only the owner of the Rolls-Royce, but also the new student who reported in by helicopter. No wonder both seniors are so attentive to him. Kevin's whole body went limp, and he almost fell to the ground, his face full of bitterness. Chapter 14, This Movie Ticket is Really Cheap. Sitting in the top-of-the-line Rolls-Royce, Ethan was filled with surprise. The naturally aspirated 60-degree V12 engine, coupled with a ZF6-speed automatic transmission, accelerates from a standstill to 100 kilometers per hour in just 5.9 seconds, and its top speed can reach 240 kilometers per hour. In one word, awesome. 2 words, super cool. Try to stay as far away from the cars around you. If you get bumped into, you might have to sell your car or house. While waiting for the red light, Ethan rolled down the window and heard a whistle from the side. He subconsciously turned his head to look. She was a beauty with an internet celebrity face, big eyes, and a pointed chin. Ethan suddenly thought of the snake spirit in Calabash Brothers. She winked at Ethan. Handsome guy? Want to be friends? Ethan withdrew his gaze and silently rolled up the car window. When the light turned green, Ethan stepped on the accelerator and the roar of the Rolls-Royce V12 engine exploded instantly. The Rolls-Royce Phantom disappeared directly from the astonished sight of the internet celebrity-faced beauty. When we returned to Shuei and Yaju, it was already 10 o'clock in the evening. As soon as you reached the door, you were stopped by the security guard. Seeing that it was Ethan, the security guard quickly let him in and said respectfully, "Mr. Lin, how about I take a photo of your car and register it for you at the property management? This way you don't have to register when you go in and out, which will be much more convenient." Ethan nodded. "Then I'll trouble you. This is what I should do. After taking the photos, Ethan drove the car directly back to Yunshuijian. As soon as I entered the door, a notification tone from my mobile phone rang. It is a friend request with a note, Kevin. Ethan wanted to ignore it, but after thinking about it, he agreed to the application. As soon as I passed, several messages came in succession. Kevin, Ethan, I'm sorry I was blind today. Kevin, we are classmates. Can you forgive me this time? Kevin, I promise I will never do this again. Ethan frowned and simply set his messages to do not disturb. Just as I was about to go wash up, Sophia sent me another message. Sophia, Junior, are you free tomorrow? I'll treat you to dinner. Sophia, so cute.jpg. Sophia, acting cute.jpg. Ethan thought about it and refused. Sophia, oh, that's a shame. I happen to have 2 movie tickets. We can go to the movies after dinner. Then she sent a picture with 2 tickets for a popular movie recently, and below the tickets was a pair of legs wearing fishnet stockings. Ethan, this movie ticket is so cheap. Sophia on the other end of the phone saw the message from Ethan and smiled. This is her ultimate move to kill men. Almost without hesitation, she quickly typed a line in the chat box. Sophia, so, Junior, would you like to watch a movie with me? Ethan didn't know what to say for a moment. Ethan's silence made Sophia a little embarrassed, so she continued. I just want to find someone to watch a movie with me. After all, it's pitiful to go to the movies alone. Ethan, forget it. I'm afraid I'll be malnourished. Sophia suddenly felt a little lost. Okay then, poor thing.jpg. Sophia was holding her cell phone, her chin on her hand, and she looked worried for the first time in a long time. She didn't know why, but she always felt that Ethan's attitude towards her was ambiguous. The more he did this, the more itchy she felt. No, she must take Ethan down. Even God can't change that. Sophia made up her mind secretly. Chapter 15, Apologize in Public. There was a military training mobilization meeting the next day. Ethan woke up late and drove out in his Rolls-Royce Phantom, so as not to be late. When he arrived at the large conference room, he found that it was almost full. Sophia in the crowd suddenly stood up and waved to Ethan. Ethan here? I saved a spot for you. Ethan looked around and found that the only empty seat was the one next to Sophia, so he walked over and sat down. Thanks. Sophia smiled sweetly. Why are you being so polite to me? Today, Sophia wore a white slim-fit sweater and hot pants, which perfectly showed off her figure. This attracted the attention of some male classmates. Ethan couldn't help but say, the senior is so charming. Many boys pay attention to her. Sophia said coquettishly. No, I see your attention is not on me either. Ethan did not answer her question directly, but asked, Senior sister, aren't you feeling choked? Sophia was slightly stunned and immediately understood what Ethan meant and immediately looked worried. Oh, people with body shapes are the problem. Wearing loose clothes makes us look fat, and wearing tight clothes? She didn't continue speaking, but gave Ethan a look that said, you know what I mean. Then she sighed. I don't want to look fat, so I have to do this. All right. After Ethan said 2 words, he turned his gaze to the instructor at the podium. Looking at his profile, Sophia's eyes flashed with a hint of triumphant smile. Seeing that Ethan had no intention of continuing to talk, Sophia continued to find topics to talk about. Actually, this mobilization meeting doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter if you don't come. You just need to get the military training uniform. I can get it for you. Ethan quickly said, since I'm already here, I won't bother you, senior. Ethan was a little uncomfortable with the enthusiasm of this senior. All in all, they had only met 3 times, and she invited him to dinner and a movie, and she also saved a seat for him. All right. Sophia also knew when to stop. If she continued, Ethan might get offended, so she had no choice but to shut up and listen carefully to the instructor's speech. Kevin, who was sitting not far away, focused his attention on Ethan the moment he walked in. He had 2 heavy dark circles under his eyes and looked very haggard. He sent an apology message to Ethan yesterday, but Ethan didn't reply. He couldn't sleep well all night and was very worried. His family is just moderately well off, and he bought that BMW 5 Series with a loan. He offended a hidden boss like Ethan and didn't handle it properly. He would be on the verge of social death in Donghai University. There is almost no room for recovery. The more Kevin thought about it, the more scared he became, and a layer of sticky cold sweat broke out on his back. His college life has just begun. He doesn't want to die socially. Zhang next to him asked, Brother Kai, what's wrong with you? Why do you look so bad? Are you sick? Kevin didn't reply to him, but glanced at Ethan. It was break time now. Kevin thought about it, then stood up and walked towards Ethan. He got in front of Ethan. Kevin bowed 90 degrees. Ethan, I'm sorry. I apologize for my rudeness and impoliteness yesterday. Chapter 16, Military Training. The sudden bow startled Ethan, and he was completely confused. Kevin's action, all the students present looked over here. Perhaps thinking that Ethan didn't hear clearly, Kevin repeated it again and added a standard 90-degree bow. The students were confused. What's going on? Why should Monitor Kevin apologize to him? I don't know. Who can tell us what happened? Ethan finally came to his senses. You worry too much. I don't take it seriously. Kevin felt crazy when he heard this. If you don't take it to heart, then why don't you reply to my message? But although he thought so in his heart, he didn't dare to show it. Thanks. After thanking him, Kevin sat back in his seat and breathed a sigh of relief. Ethan looked puzzled. He turned around and saw Sophia's inquiring expression, then spread his hands helplessly. He really didn't take it to heart and didn't expect that Kevin would apologize to him in public. Soon, the military training mobilization meeting ended. After receiving the military training uniforms, the students left the classroom one after another. And Sophia also left early because of something. Ethan took his military training uniform and prepared to leave. Downstairs, Clara looked at the Rolls-Royce Phantom with a hint of doubt in her beautiful eyes. This is her favorite car, no doubt about it. Huh? There's actually someone driving a Rolls-Royce Phantom in school. How come I didn't notice it before? Could he be a new student? Just as she was confused, Ethan came out. She was about to go up to say hello, but she saw Ethan get into the Rolls-Royce Phantom and drive away in style. Clara was so shocked that the documents in her hands fell to the ground. That Rolls-Royce Phantom, is it Ethan's? Ethan was unaware of this episode, and he went straight back to his own room. As soon as I returned to the villa, I received a message from Clara. Clara, junior students, you will have military training tomorrow. Here are some friendly reminders for you. Prepare at least a pair of softer and thicker insoles, and sunscreen is essential. Clara, otherwise, you can only pray to the instructor to let you tan more evenly. Seeing the last sentence, Ethan couldn't help but laugh. How to tan a more even sun? As a straight man, Ethan naturally doesn't know the power of sunscreen. But it's quite late now, so I guess I can only buy it tomorrow. The next day, because it was the first day of military training, everyone got up early. The entire campus is almost full of people in camouflage. Ethan and his classmates' instructor had bad luck and chose a playground without any shade as the training ground. The weather in September, although it is early autumn, is still terribly hot. Ethan and his classmates was like a huge steamer, and the students, were the steamed buns in the steamer steaming hot. At the end of the first day, Ethan looked at his arms with a clear black and white line and was filled with dismay. The military training lasts for half a month. He now understood what Clara meant when she said that if they didn't use sunscreen, they could only pray to the instructor to get a more even tan. Ethan sighed, took out his phone, found Clara's profile picture, and clicked on it. "Senior, can you tell me which brand of sunscreen is the best?" Clara couldn't help but smile when she received the news. "Clara, I bought a lot of small gold bottle sunscreen at the last event. I still have several bottles here that have not been opened. I guess I can't use them all. Can I give you a bottle tomorrow?" "Ethan, how can this be so embarrassing?" "Clara, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's just a bottle of sunscreen." "Ethan, okay then, I'll treat you to a meal after the military training." After chatting for a while, Ethan dropped his phone and went to take a shower. The next day, everyone lined up. The instructor said with a serious face, "Yesterday, our class monitor saw a message on your campus network. A freshman complained that our military training was not strict enough and did not train him well. So we decided to increase the difficulty." As soon as these words came out, there was a burst of complaints from the audience. This is not what a freshman said. It is obviously a prank by sophomores and juniors. Only the instructors would take it seriously. But the ones who suffer are these freshmen. Seeing the freshmen complaining, the instructor immediately became unhappy. "Look at you all. How can you be so weak that you can't even withstand a punch from me? Intensifying the training is also to strengthen your bodies." Ethan, who was standing at the back, was suddenly startled because he had received another task from the system. Chapter 17. Competing with the instructor. Beep. Congratulations to the host for triggering the plot mission. Challenge the instructor and be rewarded with top-level fighting skills, valid for life. Ethan looked at the instructor's muscular physique, gritted his teeth, and raised his hand. "Instructor, I don't agree with you." Swish. Everyone's eyes fell on Ethan. Some were surprised, some were puzzled, some were gloating. The instructor frowned. "Step out." Hearing this, Ethan walked out of the queue and stared at the instructor in front of him with neither humility nor arrogance. "No matter what, we must not lose in momentum. Do you have any objection?" the instructor asked. Ethan spoke slowly. "Just now the instructor said that we are so weak that we can't even withstand a punch from you. I disagree with this statement. So, I want to compete with you, instructor." The instructor was stunned, and the other students gasped. What did they hear? Ethan wanted to compete with the instructor? Who gave him the courage, LJR? But Ethan was not panicked at all, because the moment he finished speaking, the system appeared. "Congratulations to the host for completing the mission and obtaining top-level fighting skills. Host, would you like to use it now?" Ethan's mind moved slightly. Use. Boom. A large amount of fighting knowledge flooded into Ethan's brain, as if he was a person with many years of fighting experience. At the same time, he also felt that his body was full of strength, as if it was about to explode at any time. Looking at Ethan's thin arms and legs, the instructor laughed. "Are you sure you want to compete with me? I'm afraid I'll knock you down with one punch." Ethan stood there, moving his joints. "Instructor, knock me down first." The instructor laughed angrily and rushed forward with his fist raised. Ethan dodged to the side and threw the instructor to the ground with an over-the-shoulder throw. The whole audience was shocked. What did they just see? Ethan, he threw the instructor to the ground? This is too scary. The instructor on the ground was confused, but he quickly reacted. "Good boy, you're quite capable." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed towards Ethan again. But this time, he didn't dare underestimate the enemy. Just as he rushed over, Ethan swept his leg, and the instructor fell to the ground again. "Good." The students around burst into loud cheers. "Ozzel, Ethan is so handsome. Love, love, love. This is so manly. It gives me a full sense of security." "Fuck, Ethan bullshit plath." The instructor stood up and admitted defeat. "You are so good, kid. I can't beat you. I admit defeat." "Thank you." After saying these 3 words, Ethan planned to go back to the queue. Unexpectedly, the instructor called him. "Wait a moment." Ethan turned around with some confusion. "What's wrong?" The instructor continued. "It's like this. I think you have good abilities. Why don't you be my assistant teacher?" Teaching assistant? Ethan looked confused. "As an assistant teacher, you will help me train them. This way you don't have to train, and you can rest in a cooler place. Most importantly, you can get extra credits." The instructor spoke slowly. Ethan nodded. "That's fine." The students were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. Why is it that although both of them undergo 9 years of compulsory education, Ethan is the one who is being trained while they are the ones being trained. They also want to stay in the shade. The instructor glanced at everyone. Are you jealous? You can do the same if you can beat me. Everyone shut up immediately. Let them defeat the instructor? What a joke. After that, Ethan felt much more relaxed. He just had to shout slogans and train them. Delicious. At this moment, Ethan saw a familiar figure not far away and waved at him. Ethan reported to the instructor, then left the line and walked over. Chapter 18. Emma fell down. Senior, what's wrong? Ethan asked. Today, Clara wore a simple white t-shirt and jeans. Her hair was braided and hung on one side, and even her bangs were carefully curled. She must have been in a hurry. Her bangs were slightly wet and her cheeks were rosy. Clara pulled a small bottle of something out of her messenger bag and handed it to Ethan. Hey, did you forget? Sunscreen. Ethan was slightly startled. He had indeed forgotten about this. Because he was having such a good time just now, he just shouted slogans and didn't bask in the sun at all. Although he might not need the sunscreen anymore, Clara had given it to him. So why wouldn't he accept it? Ethan took the sunscreen and said gratefully, Thank you, Senior. Then, Clara started rummaging in her bag again. Wait, I have something else for you. As she spoke, she handed Ethan another small bottle. This is an after-sun repair essence. It can also whiten your skin. Go back and apply it on the tanned areas. It should be white again. Senior, you are so thoughtful. Looking at the bottles and jars in his hands, Ethan praised sincerely. Clara smiled sweetly, and her beautiful eyes curved into crescents. I still have plenty anyway. Then Clara asked, Ethan, why did I see you weren't training with them just now? Ethan looked back at the team and said, I am now an assistant teacher specializing in training them. Claire was a little dumbfounded. What was going on? Did I hear you correctly? You train them? Ethan nodded. Now Clara was completely confused. Why can you train them? Aren't you a freshman too? Shouldn't you be training with them? Her cute look made Ethan laugh uncontrollably and even aroused his playful mood. I don't know. Maybe the instructor thinks I'm handsome. Clara was slightly stunned. You're just a talker. As she spoke, she stuffed the iced lemon grapefruit tea in her hand into his hand. I won't talk to you anymore. I'm leaving. Keratin. After saying that, she turned and left. Don't forget to look back. When the military training is over, don't forget to treat me to a meal. Ethan smiled and waved at her. When Ethan returned, he found that everyone was resting and forming a circle, while in the middle of the venue, several girls in the class were dancing enthusiastically. Many boys watched with great interest, and from time to time discussed which girl had a better figure and which girl was prettier. Ethan found an empty seat and sat down, drinking his honey grapefruit tea. Brother, that's great. I didn't expect you could win the heart of the Song University campus beauty. A boy named Zhang Chung looked at Ethan and teased. Ethan took a sip of the lemon grapefruit tea and grinned. I don't know what you're talking about. Zhang Chung had an expression of I understand all. Huh? You're still pretending. That's not nice enough. We all saw it just now. The milk tea in your hand was given to you by the campus beauty of Song University, right? Ethan was about to speak when the instructor started talking. After saying a lot, the general meaning is to play a game or a game of throwing the handkerchief. Ethan just felt a little bored. After playing a few rounds, Ethan felt so sleepy that he started yawning. Emma was chosen. According to the rules of the game, she had to throw the handkerchief behind someone without anyone noticing before the song was finished. Her eyes instantly fell on Ethan, and she immediately paid attention. Ethan shook his head helplessly, thinking that she was really stupid. Her eyes had already told him her thoughts clearly. Sure enough, she threw the object in her hand behind Ethan. Ethan reacted quickly, stood up, and chased after him with the object in hand. Emma panicked, her foot twisted, and she fell to the ground. Everyone was shocked. Chapter 19, it's time to treat the senior sister to dinner. Ethan instinctively rushed over to help her. Are you okay? Ethan asked. Emma shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes and her lips turning white in pain. My ankle is sprained, Emma said quietly. Ethan quickly squatted down to help her check her injury and found that her ankle was swollen. He immediately reported to the instructor and sent her to the infirmary. On the way, Emma looked up at Ethan's determined chin, her heart pounding, and she couldn't calm down. After coming out of the infirmary, Ethan took her directly to the bottom of the dormitory building. Can you go up by yourself? Ethan asked. Emma nodded. I can do that. She paused and continued. Thank you, Ethan. Ethan smiled. It's my fault. If I hadn't chased you, you wouldn't have fallen. Hearing Ethan say this, Emma became a little anxious and said quickly, "I don't blame you." Ethan was stunned for a moment. Why is she reacting so strongly? Coming back to her senses, Emma realized that she had overreacted and quickly explained, "Don't blame you. It was my own carelessness. Oh, I'm back." After saying this, she limped away into the dormitory building. After finally reaching the second floor, she leaned on the window and looked downstairs, only to find that Ethan was gone, and a faint sense of loss suddenly filled her heart. The more than 10 days of military training passed quickly. The boys in the class, except Ethan, got several degrees tanned. Ethan, who was exercising on the treadmill in the village gym, suddenly stopped. Beep! Congratulations to the host for triggering the plot mission. Invite Clara to dinner and be rewarded with 30% of Jiaqing Company's shares. Ethan sat on the bench and almost forgot that he still owed Clara a meal. After all, it was because of her sunscreen that he was saved from becoming a piece of coal. He took out his cell phone and sent a WeChat message to Clara. "Ethan, Senior, when are you free? I still owe you a meal." Clara replied almost immediately, "How about tomorrow at noon?" Ethan, yes. It just so happens that he has no classes tomorrow. The next day, a Rolls-Royce Phantom was parked downstairs of the girls' dormitory. Everyone who passed by was amazed. "This car is so cool. It looks like it's very expensive. This is a Rolls-Royce Phantom. It must be worth tens of millions. Awesome. Which rich young man is waiting for a girlfriend?" Ethan, who was in the driver's seat, sent a voice message to Clara, asking her when she would come down. As soon as the message was sent, I saw Clara coming downstairs. Clara seemed to have dressed up specially today. She wore a one-shoulder white dress, her hair tied into a bun, and 2 strands of dragon whisker bangs hanging on her cheeks, making her face look even smaller. As soon as she went downstairs, Clara saw the eye-catching Rolls-Royce Phantom walking directly towards her. Everyone around was stunned. What's going on? So this car is waiting for the campus beauty of Song University. Song University's campus beauty doesn't like dating. Is she the one that got picked up by a rich second-generation Rolls-Royce Phantom? Sure enough, the claim of not being in love is fake. Ethan also got out of the car and opened the other door for her. Clara hesitated to speak, but finally sat in the passenger's seat obediently. This is her favorite car. She really wants to drive it and try out the feel of it. Seeing Clara looking at his driver's seat from time to time, Ethan asked, "Senior, do you want to try it?" Clara's eyes lit up. "May I?" Ethan nodded, got out of the car, and switched seats with her. Clara, sitting in the driving seat of the Rolls-Royce Phantom, was extremely excited. She stepped on the accelerator, and the sound of the V12 engine exploded. Clara's face turned red with excitement. Ethan lazily leaned back in his seat and said teasingly, "I didn't expect that the senior sister is such an experienced driver." Chapter 20, The Company Crisis, is resolved. Of course. Clara glanced at him proudly, turned her head away, and drove the car seriously, experiencing the pleasure of driving the Rolls-Royce Phantom. Eugean Western Restaurant. The cool Rolls-Royce stopped at the door, attracting everyone's attention. No one wanted to miss the person who drove such a luxury car. Everyone was amazed when they saw Clara, whose beauty was close to perfect, come down from the driver's seat. Many men present were about to approach and strike up a conversation, but when they saw Ethan getting out of the passenger seat, they froze in place. The expressions on their faces became indescribable. It turns out that she already has a gigolo. They looked at Ethan and wished they could take his place. After finishing the meal, the mechanical voice of the system immediately sounded. "Congratulations to the host for completing the mission, and you will be rewarded with 30% of the shares of Jiaqing Company." Ethan was excited. He had heard of Jiaqing Company, one of the leading enterprises in Donghai City. In other words, he is now the major shareholder of Jiaqing Company. "Are you a winner in life?" Clara looked at Ethan with some confusion. "What's wrong with you? Why are you so happy all of a sudden?" Ethan looked at her gratefully. "Senior, you are also my lucky star." Clara, she naturally didn't notice the word also. Office of the Chairman of Jiaqing Company. Lily, dressed in a professional suit, sat in an office chair, rubbing her slightly aching temple with one hand. Recently, Jiaqing Company's capital chain has had problems. She hasn't had a good night's sleep for several days and looks a little haggard. Originally, they found a company that could invest, but their boss was too greedy. If they agreed to their conditions, even if Jiaqing could survive this crisis, it would be seriously damaged. What's more, they want not only Jiaqing's shares, but also her. This is what Lily can't stand the most. Chairman, the anxious voice of Secretary Zhang Yuanyuan came from the door. Lily frowned slightly. What's the matter? You're so flustered. Our company's capital chain problem has been solved. What? Lily was so shocked that she stood up from her seat. Can you say that again? Zhang Yuanyuan was obviously also very excited. Just now, a man named Ethan injected 500 million in cash flow at one time. Our company's capital chain crisis can be resolved. Lily's frown finally relaxed, and her whole body relaxed from the tense state. Coming back to her senses, she looked at Zhang Yuanyuan. What's the name of that gentleman you just mentioned? Zhang Yuanyuan said quickly. Ethan? Ethan? Lily was shocked. Could it be her neighbor? As soon as this idea came up, it was rejected. Lily smiled helplessly. How could it be him? He is still so young. Even if he has money, it will cost hundreds of millions to take over Yunshuijian. Where would he get 500 million? They should have the same name and surname. Zhang Yuanyuan asked, Chairman, do you want me to contact Mr. Lin and have him handle the handover procedures? Lily nodded, her red lips slightly parted. Well, go ahead. Here. Ethan had just sent Clara back to the school dormitory when he received a call. Hello, is this Mr. Ethan? It was a very polite voice with a hint of respect. I am. Who are you? The other end of the phone said, I am Sun Feifei, the legal officer of Jiaqing Group. Excuse me, are you free recently? Your relevant certificates are ready. Would you like to find some time to come to our company to handle the handover? Or if you don't have time to come, we can go find you. Ethan was slightly surprised. The system had just given him the shares, but he didn't expect Jiaqing's people to be so efficient. He looked at the time. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He happened to have nothing to do in the afternoon, so he said, I'm free now, please send me the location. Sun Feifei was slightly stunned. Okay, then we'll get ready right away and look forward to your arrival. At the same time, the entire Jiaqing company was in an uproar. Secretary Zhang just issued an order that a distinguished guest will come to our company. I wonder which client it is that requires such a grand ceremony. That's not right. When we met with big foreign clients before, it wasn't this grand. Didn't we hear rumors a while ago that our company had capital problems? Could this distinguished guest be related to resolving this crisis? Lily in the chairman's office also tidied up her appearance as quickly as possible, waiting for Ethan to arrive. Ethan, who helped their company solve the capital chain problem? Just then her cell phone rang. Seeing the note displayed on the phone, a hint of disgust flashed across Lily's beautiful eyes, but she still pressed the answer button. Boss Jiang, have you considered it? We want 30% of the shares for the 100 million yuan. If you have considered it, come to the hotel tonight. Chapter 21, It's Really Ethan. Before he could finish, Lily interrupted him. Mr. Zhang, that's not necessary. After saying that, she hung up the phone. 100 million in capital, and you want 30% of the shares. Is that a joke? That Mr. Lin directly invested 500 million. Mr. Zhang on the other end of the phone looked at his phone in disbelief, completely dumbfounded. Lily, how dare you hang up on him? By then, Lily will be begging him with tears. Meanwhile, Ethan had already arrived downstairs at the company. After registering with the security guard, he walked into the company. After taking a few steps, I heard a scolding. Hey, what do you do? Are you here to apply for a job? Ethan turned around in confusion, only to see a middle-aged man in a suit looking at him bossily. Seeing that Ethan didn't say anything, he continued, Hurry up and leave. We're not hiring today. Then he looked at the security guard not far away. What are you doing? Don't you know that there are distinguished guests coming today? Why let these strangers in? Ethan is now completely furious. At this moment, a female voice came. Manager Zhou, what are you arguing about? Seeing the visitor, Manager Zhou quickly flattered. Director Sun, these security guards are ignorant and let people in without permission. Ethan looked at the woman in business attire. Director Sun Feifei. Hearing this, Sun Feifei was stunned. You are Mr. Ethan Lin? Ethan nodded. Manager Zhou's face turned pale instantly. He seemed to remember that distinguished guest was called Ethan. Sun Feifei was also shocked. She never expected that this Mr. Lin was so young and handsome. Just now, Manager Zhou almost had Mr. Lin kicked out. Sun Feifei was frightened. After all, they haven't taken over yet. If Ethan suddenly changes his mind, wouldn't their company be finished? Thinking of this, she glared at Manager Zhou coldly. Do you know what stupid thing you just did? Aye. Manager Zhou was sweating profusely and couldn't utter a complete sentence. Sun Feifei's tone was cold. This Mr. Lin invested 500 million in Jiaqing all at once. He is Jiaqing's savior. Who do you think you are? How dare you disrespect him? I'm going to the finance department to get my salary now. I don't need to come tomorrow. I believe the chairman will support my decision. After saying that, Sun Feifei turned to Ethan. Mr. Lin, we are really sorry for such a big oversight on our part. Fine. Afterwards, Sun Feifei took Ethan to the chairman's office on the top floor. Manager Zhou stood there with a dejected look on his face, full of regret. But no matter how much he regretted it, it was of no avail. Chairman's office. As soon as Ethan walked in, he saw a familiar figure sitting on the office chair. Lily? Ethan was shocked. Lily is the chairman of Jiaqing Company? Lily raised her head upon hearing the noise, and the next second, she looked stunned. Ethan? Is it really you? Sun Feifei was confused. She looked at Ethan and then at Lily. Chairman, Mr. Lin, do you know each other? Ethan smiled. We are more than acquaintances. We are neighbors. Lily also laughed. When I learned that a man named Ethan had injected 500 million into our company, I immediately thought of you, but I didn't dare to believe it. I didn't expect it to be you. Ethan sat on the soft sofa and said with a smile, It's fate. Lily also sat opposite him. Zhang Yuan immediately made 2 cups of tea and placed them in front of the two of them. By the way, did you know that something happened in my company, so you came to help me? Lily said with a smile. Chapter 22. Really a fox? Ethan glanced at her. I said no. Do you believe it? Lily smiled and narrowed her beautiful peach blossom eyes slightly. No. Ethan spread his hands. She didn't believe it, but there was nothing she could do. He really knew nothing, and these 30% shares were a reward from the system. However, if she insists on thinking so, then let her be. Then she continued, Mr. Lin is young and promising. I like him very much. Lily smiled, her eyes full of cunning. She didn't know why, but she always liked to tease Ethan. Ethan coughed twice. Mr. Jiang, thank you for your compliment. Lily smiled and didn't continue the previous topic. She picked up the teacup on the table, took a sip, and said slowly, I imported a large number of skincare products from abroad, but something went wrong. I invested a lot of money, but the goods were stuck in the warehouse, and our company was unable to make ends meet. In other words, your 500 million almost saved the entire Jiaqing. You are also the benefactor of our Jiaqing. Lily put the teacup on the table and looked at Ethan seriously. Ethan felt a little frightened by the look on his face. But after a moment, Lily laughed. Tell me, I owe you such a big favor. How can I thank you? How about I pledge my love to you? Ethan, who was drinking tea, choked. Is it so direct? Mr. Jiang, please stop joking. I'm just a student. Ethan said helplessly. Lily is really a fox. It's hard to play with her. Hearing this, Lily raised her eyebrows. A student? From Donghai University. Ethan nodded. Freshman. What a coincidence. Donghai University is also my alma mater, but I have graduated for several years. In that case, you still have to call me senior. Lily giggled. Ethan? Another senior? Before Ethan could speak, Lily said, I'm very curious. You just bought Shueyu and Shuejian in full, and now you're injecting 500 million into me. Where did you get so much money? As she spoke, she pushed the bangs that fell on one side of her cheek behind her ear and looked at Ethan. What a fox. This was the only thought in Ethan's mind at the moment. Her every move reveals her charm. After saying this, Lily realized that what she said was inappropriate, so she said apologetically, I'm sorry. I was rude just now. We are in a cooperative relationship, and it's not my place to ask about Mr. Lin's assets. Ethan was slightly stunned, and it took him a few seconds to realize that Lily thought he was angry. Fine, Ethan said. Because of the previous incident, Lily was a little dazed. The teacup in her hand shook, and the tea spilled on her collar. Well, Lily took off her suit jacket and wiped the water stains on her white shirt in a hurry. Ethan took the tissue beside him and handed it to her. Wipe it. The shirt and hip skirt show off Lily's graceful figure. What a monster. Ethan couldn't help but think in his heart. Thanks. Lily thanked him while wiping her clothes with a tissue, feeling very annoyed. How did she end up embarrassing herself like this in front of Ethan? It's so embarrassing. Thinking of this, Lily's ears turned slightly red, and even her cheeks were stained with 2 blushes. Looking at the messy clothes, Lily gave up trying to save them and sighed. I'm going to change my clothes. Seeing this, Ethan was about to stand up. Then I'll step aside. Lily shook her head. No, just wait for me here. I have a cubicle in my office. Chapter 23, Equity Handover Ceremony. Good. Then, Lily went straight into the cubicle and closed the door. Ethan drank tea while visiting Lily's office. He found that Lily had good taste. The whole office was comfortably decorated, and there were several paintings hanging on the wall. Soon, Lily came out wearing a white shirt. Lily said a little embarrassedly, "I'm sorry to make you laugh." Ethan shook his head. "No problem. Let's go to the conference room and start the equity handover ceremony." Lily said, "Good." As soon as they went out, they saw Secretary Zhang Yuanyuan standing guard outside the door. "Chairman, the conference room is ready and waiting for you and Mr. Lin." Lily shirred unconsciously. Lily didn't notice her little movement and just nodded. "Okay, I understand." After saying that, Lily took Ethan directly to the meeting room. She remembered that Mr. Jiang didn't seem to be wearing this dress today. Moreover, the two of them had been in there for such a long time, and there were strange noises. When he came out, Mr. Jiang had changed his clothes and his cheeks were slightly flushed. After connecting so many clues together, Zhang Yuanyuan was so shocked that she covered her mouth. Isn't this too exciting? The two were unaware of Zhang Yuanyuan's thoughts. As soon as they entered the conference room, everyone inside stood up, and Ethan and Lily walked to the two main seats and sat down. They saw Ethan. Everyone was shocked. Isn't Mr. Lin, who invested 500 million yuan, too young? It's really frustrating to compare yourself with others. When they were their age, they were probably still in school, while Mr. Lin has already become a major shareholder of a company. "Everyone please sit down," Lily said. Ethan couldn't help but look at Lily a few times. He didn't expect Lily to be so aloof. She looked like a queen with a strong aura. However, when she starts to tease people, she becomes a cunning fox. As soon as Lily turned her head, she met Ethan's eyes. "These are all our Jiaqing's senior management." Ethan nodded but said nothing. Lily continued to speak to the people below. "I believe everyone has heard that Jiaqing encountered a crisis some time ago and its capital chain was broken. Fortunately, Mr. Lin invested 500 million yuan, which enabled us to survive this crisis. Mr. Ethan is the benefactor of our entire Jiaqing." As soon as he finished speaking, there was warm applause from the audience. Ethan also noticed that when she was speaking, everyone was very serious and no one was distracted. It is conceivable that they are quite in awe of this beautiful female president. Afterwards, Ethan stood up, said a few polite words, and then moved on to the next step, the share handover ceremony. Sun Feifei came up with a tray with some documents and 2 pens on it. Lily signed her name first, gracefully, yet powerfully. On Ethan's side, his writing is vigorous and powerful. After seeing Ethan's handwriting on the big display screen, Lily couldn't help but look at him with a new respect. Why does she feel that this Ethan is becoming more and more interesting? After the handover ceremony, Ethan left surrounded by senior executives. When they reached the door, Lily suddenly said, "Let's go have a meal together. You've helped me so much. I'll treat you." "Good." Ethan didn't think much about it and agreed directly. Donghai Pearl Hotel. Just as I reached the door, a voice came. "Lily." Chapter 24, he invested 500 million. Hearing this voice, Lily's body stiffened slightly. She turned around and looked at the person coldly. "Mr. Zhang." Ethan also looked over. The person who came was a middle-aged bald man with a big belly and a pair of triangular eyes that seemed to be glued to Lily. He saw Ethan. He looked him up and down, then smiled contemptuously. "You came to a date and brought a pretty boy with you? Go to an appointment?" Ethan was confused. Lily also frowned. Before, she went to ask Mr. Zhang to invest in Jiaqing, but Mr. Zhang not only lowered the price, but also set his sights on her. If she had known that he had chosen this place, she, Lily, would never have brought Ethan here. "I don't know what Mr. Zhang is talking about. I'm here to treat you today. Dinner." Mr. Zhang's eyes fell on Ethan. "You're not going to tell me it's this guy?" Lily's face darkened. "This is my guest. Please be more respectful when speaking to me, Mr. Zhang." Mr. Zhang was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. "You want me to be respectful to such a yellow-haired boy?" Ethan looked confused. What does this have to do with him? How did it get to him? Who can tell him what happened? After laughing enough, Mr. Zhang continued. "It seems that Mr. Jiang no longer needs my investment." He sneered, his words full of threats. Lily glanced at Ethan before saying, "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Zhang. We don't need Jiaqing anymore." Lily put a lot of emphasis on the word good intentions. Mr. Zhang was stunned. He never expected Lily to say such a thing. In his opinion, if Jiaqing Company has no source of funds, it will be difficult to survive. Could it be that Lily has found a source of funding? Lily sneered and continued. Mr. Lin has already injected 500 million yuan into Jiaqing at one time. Therefore, we don't need Mr. Zhang's help anymore. After saying that, she looked at Ethan. Let's go in. Ethan nodded, glanced at the petrified Mr. Zhang, and followed Lily in. Mr. Zhang stood there blankly, unable to come back to his senses for a long time. Are you kidding? A one-time investment of 500 million? That kid is only in his 20s. Where does he get so much money at his age? Could it be that he is a young master from a noble family, and the one who invested 500 million was not him, but the elder in their family? Thinking of this, Mr. Zhang quickly made a phone call. Help me check whether Jiaqing Company has found the source of funds. And by the way, check the details of the person who invested in them. Here, Lily and Ethan were already sitting in the box. Thinking of what happened just now, Lily smiled bitterly. I just made you laugh. Who was that person? Ethan asked. It was Zhang Daguang, the general manager of Sino-Ocean Group. Our company was isolated and helpless due to the capital chain crisis, so I want to ask him for help. He was willing to invest, but the conditions he offered were very harsh and excessive. Lily didn't want to say anything more. After hearing this, Ethan probably knew what was going on. It's nothing more than that old pervert Zhang Daguang trying to use this to threaten Lily into giving herself to him. It's hard for her. But after a moment, Lily sorted out her emotions and said with a smile, So, I owe you a big favor. If you need any help from Sisterly in the future, just let me know as long as I can do it. Hearing this, Ethan suddenly had a teasing and amusing expression on his face. Oh, anything is fine as long as you can do it. Chapter 25. Lily is so generous with her 100,000 yuan wine. Lily was a little surprised and raised her eyebrows slightly. What do you want to do? Ethan laughed twice. I haven't thought about it yet. I'll talk about it later. Lily smiled and said nothing more. After dinner, since they both lived opposite each other, they went back to Shui and Yeju together. After arriving at the pickup house, the two returned to their own villas. After taking a shower, Ethan put on a loose bathrobe and sat in the living room watching a movie. His eyes suddenly caught sight of the 2 bottles of red wine that Lily had sent him last time, and an idea suddenly came to his mind. He took out a red wine glass and filled it up, then took a photo and posted it to his moments with the caption, Enjoy life. Within a few minutes, there were several comments. Li Xinjian, what a jerk. It seems you are doing well. You even drank 100,000 bottles of wine. Zhou Qian, drinking too much fake alcohol is bad for your health. Smile. Sophia, oh, enjoy life without taking me away. The first one was his good friend in high school, and the second one was his classmate in junior high school, the most beautiful girl in the class, the best among all the girls. It seemed that I heard that she dropped out of school after junior high school. However, Ethan suddenly woke up and sat up from the sofa. 100,000 worth of wine? Ethan was checking the internet on his phone. French Lumiere, Winery, Musigny Grand Cru, Dry Red. The name is strangely long. International average price, 92,594 yuan. Just giving away wine worth $200,000 is really generous. Just then Lily sent a message. Lily, I just saw your circle of friends. This is my favorite wine. How does it taste? Is it delicious? Ethan, it's delicious. Lily, as long as it tastes good. Soon after, Sophia also sent a message. Sophia, Junior, you really know how to enjoy life. I've also been learning to cook recently. Junior, take a look at how I do. Afterwards, she sent me some photos of the delicious food she made in the dormitory. Ethan, won't the illegal electrical appliances be confiscated? Sophia, they don't dare to accept mine. Ethan, it's dry, be careful of fire. After saying this, Ethan put down his phone. The next day, Ethan got up early and drove to have breakfast. Business was quite brisk in the morning, and Ethan finally found a parking space. As soon as I sat down and ordered some egg dumplings and crystal buns, I heard a noise next to me. Oh my God, there's a Rolls-Royce Phantom outside. Awesome. I wonder whose car this is. There aren't many luxury cars in Donghai City, but I didn't expect to see one here. How rich does one have to be to spend so much money on this car? There were a few young people, and they started talking as soon as they found a place to sit down. A girl sitting at the table next to them immediately pricked up her ears. Ethan also glanced at them indifferently, said nothing, and ate his breakfast silently. The girl looked around the store several times, and her eyes finally fell on an old man. The uncle was about 40 years old, wearing a suit that looked not cheap. Even his leather shoes were polished to a shine. His hair was combed back and tied into a small ponytail. He also has the air of a successful person. The young men seemed to have noticed him as well and began to discuss in low voices with their heads lowered. It should be that uncle, right? His suit looks very expensive. I think it's him. I didn't expect that someone who drives a luxury car would be so down-to-earth and come to a place like this for breakfast. I'm so jealous. I wish I could drive a luxury car like that. The girl seemed to have made up her mind. She took out a makeup mirror, touched up her makeup, put on a smile that she thought was her best, and walked towards the uncle with her breakfast. Hello, sir. Can I share a table with you? The uncle was stunned, then nodded. She was delighted and sat opposite the uncle. She pretended to lift her hair and threw him a few seductive glances. Your car is so beautiful. Can I sit in the passenger seat? Ethan next to him couldn't help but almost laughed out loud. Ethan unhappily, then turned to the uncle and put on a smile again. The uncle nodded in confusion. His Nissan, isn't it beautiful? After finishing breakfast, Ethan took a tissue, wiped his mouth, stood up, and walked out. With one step, the roar of the V12 engine exploded, and the Rolls-Royce Phantom disappeared without a trace. Several people in the store were dumbfounded. That Rolls-Royce Phantom, is it the one owned by the young man just now? Chapter 26. Sophia's loving breakfast. Especially the girl, who glared at the uncle with an angry look on her face. That Rolls-Royce Phantom isn't yours? The uncle nodded blankly. No, I drive a Nissan. Bang. The girl stood up and said angrily. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You're wasting my time. I don't want to eat anymore. After saying that, she left angrily. She regretted chatting up the wrong person. I should have found that little brother earlier. Meanwhile, Ethan has already arrived in the classroom. Not long after I sat down, a girl next to me came over and whispered, Ethan, thank you. Ethan was confused. Thank me for what? If you remember correctly, this girl's name seemed to be Chu Qianqian. Chu Qianqian smiled sweetly and said, It's because of you that I became the class monitor. Now Ethan was even more confused. Isn't Kevin the monitor? Heard Ethan's words, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes. Kevin changed his major, didn't you know? They all said that Kevin changed his major because of you. I became the class monitor after Kevin left. Ethan, Kevin, were you scared away by yourself? Well, I don't know anything. Chu Qianqian wanted to say something else, but then her foreign language teacher came in and she immediately shut her mouth. Ethan several times, but seeing that he was listening to the class attentively, she did not disturb him. It was just break time, and Ethan was about to lie down on the table for a nap when a familiar voice came. Ethan, come out for a moment. Hearing this, Ethan looked up towards the door. Sophia? What does she want to do with herself? Just as Ethan was confused, Sophia waved at him. Ethan had no choice but to get up and walk out. Sophia handed 2 exquisite bags to Ethan and said softly, I guess you didn't have breakfast, so I brought you some egg tarts and milk tea. The people around immediately started to make a noise. Wow, breakfast with love. I envy you. I am a lemon. I am a lemon. Why can't I meet such a considerate senior? Listening to the conversations around her, Sophia's cheeks turned red with embarrassment. Ethan looked at the bag in his hand and said embarrassedly, Senior, I'm having breakfast. Why don't you take it back and eat it yourself? Sophia's expression froze for a moment, but returned to normal after a moment. It's okay, you can eat it as a snack. This is the egg tart I baked myself. How can you refuse it? The booing at the back became even more cheerful. Ethan had no choice but to accept it. Thank you, Senior. Sophia suddenly became happy, squinted her eyes, and smiled. It's okay, I'll go back first. Ethan returned to his seat with the bag, and as soon as he opened it, the aroma of egg tarts hit his nose. It smells really good and is still hot. There were 6 in total, and he had eaten breakfast in the morning, so he couldn't eat so much. Ethan glanced at Chu Qianqian next to him and handed one over. Do you want to eat? Chu Qianqian shook her head. Eat it. I'm trying to lose weight recently. Ethan glanced at her figure and shook his head. You want to lose weight with your current condition? If you lose more, you will become an adult. Come on, eat a full meal so you can have the energy to lose weight. As he said that, Ethan stuffed the egg tart directly into her hand. Chu Qianqian had no choice but to start eating, praising while eating. It's delicious. Emma, who was sitting not far away, glanced at Ethan, then looked at the egg tart in his hand, silently picked up the phone, and found the sister dialogue box. Su Tao, can you make egg tarts? Chapter 27. Sisters' Love begins. Son, Su Tao replied. Su Tao, Yes. What's wrong? Do you want to eat? Emma. No, I want to learn. There was a pause for a while before someone sent a message. Su Tao's sister, what's going on? Don't you hate going into the kitchen? Why do you suddenly want to make egg tarts? Su Tao. By the way, I'm at your school gate. Please come out as soon as the get out of class is over. Tell me if you have anything to say. And pay attention in class. Emma pursed her lips and sent a okay. Soon, the bell rang for the end of get out of class. Ethan went downstairs and planned to have lunch. At the school gate, a girl in a Lolita skirt caught his attention, and Ethan couldn't help but take a few more glances. The moment the Lolita girl turned around, Ethan was dumbfounded. Emma, why is she here? Shouldn't she be in the classroom? Moreover, he remembered that Emma was not wearing Lolita. I drove out here. Could it be possible that Emma ran faster than the car and changed her clothes at the same time? Ethan came to his senses and looked again, only to find that the Lolita girl had disappeared. He couldn't help but shook his head. It seems that I made a mistake. Thinking of this, Ethan stepped on the accelerator and drove away from the school. Meanwhile, Emma had just walked to the school gate, looking for someone in the crowd. The moment she saw her, the Lolita girl immediately came forward. Sister, I'm here. The moment she saw her, Emma breathed a sigh of relief. The girl wearing a Lolita skirt is her twin sister, Su Tao. They look almost identical, but their personalities are very different. Su Tao came over and hugged Emma's arm directly. Sister, are you hungry? What do you want to eat? I'll treat you. Emma glanced at her calmly. You don't have classes this afternoon? Su Tao squinted her eyes and smiled. I skipped class just to have a meal with you. How about it? Are you touched? Emma shook her head. If you are not touched, you should stop skipping classes in the future. Oh yeah, I know. Fearing that her sister Emma would nag her, Su Tao quickly changed the subject. By the way, sister, why do you suddenly want to learn how to make egg tarts? Don't you dislike sweets? Hearing this, Emma glanced at her, lowered her head slightly, and the tips of her ears turned red. Seeing this, Su Tao suddenly revealed a sly smile. Could it be that sister is in love? Are you learning to make egg tarts for a man? After hearing Su Tao's words, Emma's face turned even redder, almost bleeding. You don't talk nonsense. Su Tao held her chin with both hands and looked at her, saying teasingly, Oh my sister is angry. It seems I was right. We were born from the same womb. Don't I know what you were thinking? But you are really good at it. You even know that to capture a man's heart, you have to capture his stomach first. Not bad. TSK, 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 TSK. Emma with curiosity, as if she had discovered a new world, which made Emma furious. After a while, she had no choice but to tell the truth and told Su Tao everything that had happened between her and Ethan. After hearing this, Su Tao held her face with both hands, her eyes shining frighteningly. He arrived by helicopter, dressed simply. He made a big splash during military training, and when you were injured, he was the first to check on your injuries and even sent you to the infirmary. Ah, this is totally the plot of a sweet campus romance. As she spoke, she grabbed Emma's hands with both hands and said excitedly, Is this guy named Ethan also like the male protagonist in the novel, with extraordinary abilities and intelligence? Emma gently pushed her hand away and gave her a subtle look. You should read less sweet romance novels. Su Tao was still immersed in her own imagination and was extremely excited. After dinner, Su Tao came up with an idea and Emma was stunned. Change identity. Su Tao kept shaking her arms and said coquettishly, Sister, didn't we often switch identities before? I'll just sit in your classroom and see what this Ethan looks like, okay? Besides, you finally found someone you like, so I must help you investigate and see if he has good character. Otherwise, with your stubborn personality, you would be cheated and not even notice it. Emma couldn't resist her coquetry and had to agree. In the afternoon, when it was time for class, Su Tao changed into Emma's clothes and sat in the classroom looking around, looking for Ethan. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. Chapter 28, Weird Emma. As soon as Ethan arrived in the classroom, he saw Emma staring at him. That looked excited and curious. Thinking of this, Ethan walked directly to the seat next to her and sat down. Arrived early? Su Tao nodded quickly and said with an awkward smile, It's usually early. Ethan frowned suspiciously. Why did he feel that Emma was weird today, like a different person? According to her personality, shouldn't she just nod and ignore me? Meeting Ethan's strange eyes, Su Tao realized that she had been exposed and quickly imitated Emma's usual behavior and deliberately put on a stern face. Ethan nodded. That's more like her. Then, he remembered what happened at the school gate at noon and asked in confusion. I think I saw you at the school gate this afternoon. You were wearing a Lolita. Su Tao's body froze, her eyes wandering, and she said with a guilty conscience, "You must have seen it wrong. I don't wear that kind of clothes. It's too conspicuous. I don't like it." This is what Emma said. Ethan nodded. I also think I saw it wrong. Unless you can teleport, there is no way I can see you there. Emma smiled faintly, but she was actually very nervous. Ethan looked at Emma twice more. Why did he always feel that Emma was weird today? What do you always look at me for? Is there something on my face? Su Tao pouted and asked. Ethan shook his head. Then, Su Tao seemed to remember something and asked again, "Do you like egg tarts?" Ethan was stunned for a moment, then said, "I'm fine. Why are you asking this all of a sudden?" Su Tao squinted and smiled. "Nothing." Thinking of what happened in the morning, Ethan suddenly smiled. "Why? You want to make me egg tarts too?" Su Tao was slightly startled, with a proud look on her face. "Humph, Carrot, no way." Ethan was a little uncomfortable seeing Emma being so cute. But she is still very cute like this. Then the teacher came, and the two stopped chatting. However, Su Tao's mind was not on the classroom, but on Ethan. Su Tao couldn't help feeling tired in spring and sleepy in autumn, and soon she lay down on the desk. The bell rang for the end of class. Ethan looked at the girl who was sleeping soundly and knocked on the desk helplessly. Su Tao woke up suddenly and immediately sat up straight like a well-behaved elementary school student. Ethan burst out laughing. "Get out of class is over." Su Tao finally reacted, rubbed her sleepy eyes, and said ignorantly, "Huh? So the get out of class is over." As he spoke, he stretched and yawned. Ethan smiled and said teasingly, "You have drool all over your face. Wipe it off." Su Tao was stunned for a moment, then immediately reached out and wiped her face randomly, but found nothing. "You tricked me? You big liar," Su Tao said angrily. Ethan couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Let's go eat together." Su Tao crossed her arms and looked proud. "That's more like it." As soon as she said this, she regretted it. She still has to find Emma to change her clothes back. After thinking about it, she said, "Forget it. I suddenly remembered that I have something else to do. I'll leave first." After saying that, she picked up her bag and fled. Ethan looked confused, baffling. Driving to the school gate, Ethan saw the Lolita girl again. He couldn't help but look at it a few more times, and the next second, Ethan was stunned. "Isn't this Emma?" Ethan drove the car next to Emma and rolled down the window. Emma, who was wearing bunny ears, twin ponytails, and a gorgeous Lolita dress. Hearing this voice, Emma froze and turned her head mechanically. The moment she saw Ethan, Emma almost cried. Ethan, why are you here?" Ethan was completely confused. "I was just wondering why you are here." Emma hesitated for a long time and couldn't say a word. At this moment, a clear voice came. Sister, I just saw him." Ethan looked in the direction of the voice and immediately began to question his life. Another Emma? Chapter 29, Two Emmas. The girl who ran over like the wind had the exact same face as Emma. Emma's facial features were almost twisted together, and she wanted to find a hole in the ground to crawl into immediately and never come out again in her life. Su Tao had already run to Emma, panting and saying, "Sister, I'm telling you, I was so scared I almost got exposed just now." Emma wanted to cry, but had no tears, and kept winking at her. Su Tao, who had not yet realized the seriousness of the matter, looked puzzled. "Sister, what's wrong with your eyes? Is there sand in them? Do you want me to blow them out for you?" Emma shook her head. She was really close to tears. Only then did Su Tao notice the luxury car beside her. "Oh my God!" Rolls-Royce Phantom. Looking at the person in the driver's seat again, the excitement on Su Tao's face froze instantly. "Ethan?" Half an hour later, in a coffee shop, Ethan held his face with one hand and looked at the two girls opposite him, who looked almost identical. The two girls lowered their heads and dared not speak or look at Ethan, just like elementary school students who were being scolded for doing something wrong. Emma, Su Tao, twin sisters? Hearing this, Emma nodded, glanced at Ethan secretly, and lowered her head even more. Su Tao raised her head stubbornly and looked directly at Ethan. "So what? It's not against the law to just change identities for fun." The more Su Tao spoke, the less confident she became, and her voice became smaller and smaller. "I'm sorry, sister. I'm scared too," Su Tao muttered to herself. Ethan looked at Su Tao, who was wearing casual clothes, and asked, It was you who was in the classroom just now, right? Su Tao nodded. Yes. Emma looked up at Ethan. Did you guess it? Ethan shook his head and took a sip of the coffee in front of him. I didn't think about it that way at the time. I just thought it was extremely strange. I also wonder if Emma has a split personality. Su Tao's face froze, and she drank her coffee silently to ease the embarrassment. Emma continued to ask, why? Ethan glanced at Su Tao. First, it's a personality issue. The two people's personalities are too different. Then, you never sleep in class, but she slept for nearly 2 classes and didn't even wake up after class. Hearing this, Emma immediately glared at her sister with gritted teeth. Su Tao. Su Tao quickly clasped her hands together and begged for mercy. Sister, I was wrong. Oh, Tihetu. Ethan couldn't help but laugh. You two are such a funny couple. Su Tao bared her little fangs at Ethan. You big bad guy. You're still laughing. It's all because of you. Seeing this, Emma gently scolded. Su Tao. Su Tao looked at Emma aggrievedly. Oh. The elder sister forgets her younger sister when she sees a beautiful woman. After staying for a while, Su Tao made an excuse to leave, and the two went to the bathroom to change their clothes. Ethan, Emma, and a few other people were left in the coffee shop. Ethan looked at Emma and suddenly remembered how she looked in Lolita. He smiled and said, You look pretty good in Lolita, very cute. Emma looked up at Ethan and was stunned for a few seconds. Are you serious? Ethan nodded and added, Like a doll. Emma's pretty face turned slightly red. She just felt a little thirsty, so she picked up the coffee on the table and took a sip. I think it's too conspicuous. Emma said weakly. Ethan smiled. You have to be eye-catching. People look at you because they think you are pretty. Is there anything wrong with a girl dressing up nicely? Emma stared at Ethan blankly for a few seconds, then smiled, revealing a pair of cute dimples and pointy little fangs. Ethan was a little stunned. Like a kitten, the kind that wants to be patted on the head. Ethan thought to himself, his hand unconsciously covering her head. Emma froze as if she had received an electric shock, and she panicked. Sorry, you're so cute, I couldn't help it. Ethan explained. Emma shook her head. She felt her tongue was tied, and she couldn't utter a complete sentence. Her heart was about to jump out of her chest. Ethan smiled helplessly. After the two of them stayed together for a short while, Ethan sent Emma back to the girls' dormitory. As soon as she returned to the dormitory, Emma climbed directly onto the bed and covered herself with the quilt. The roommates looked at each other in confusion. After a long time, when she could hardly breathe, she finally poked her head out to breathe. After a while, she picked up her phone again and found Su Tao's profile picture. When you have time, bring me a few of your little skirts, including the one you're wearing today and the one called Angel Street. I'll give you my saved pocket money. Chapter 30, Encounter with Lily. Su Tao, who received the news, was so shocked that her jaw almost dropped. What the hell? I've been recommending it to you before, but you didn't even notice it. Why do you suddenly want to wear it now? Didn't you say that you would never like something so eye-catching even if you were beaten to death? Sure enough, nothing can escape the law of true fragrance. Here, Ethan has returned to the villa. Just as I was about to take a rest after washing up, the phone rang urgently. Ethan picked up the phone and looked at it, frowning slightly. His high school classmate, Li Xinjian? Thinking of this, Ethan directly pressed the answer button. Hey, brother. Li Xinjian's voice came from the other end of the phone. Brother Chen, I'm so sorry to bother you so late. It's like this. A few of us high school classmates who are studying in the East China Sea are planning to get together. They asked me to notify you. Do you think you can come and catch up when you are free? Just as Ethan was about to open his mouth to refuse, a mechanical voice of the system sounded in his mind. Beep. Congratulations to the host for starting the plot mission. Agree to attend the class reunion and obtain 30% of the shares of Donghai Mimi Food Group. Ethan was a little confused. If you agree to attend a class reunion, you can get 30% of the shares of Meisher Mike. Li Xinjian thought that Ethan's signal was bad, so he asked a few questions. Brother Chen, why is there no sound from your end? Can you hear me? Ethan smiled. I can hear you. I'll go. Please send me the time and place. Beep. Congratulations to the host for completing the plot mission, and you will be rewarded with 30% of the shares of Donghai Meisher Mike Catering Group. Awesome class. Ethan sighed silently in his heart. Li Xinjian was stunned for a moment and continued. But there is one thing I need to tell you in advance. David is here too. Ethan frowned slightly. Because the girl David liked, Xiaohe, had pursued him, he has always held a grudge against her. There was bound to be some tension in this meeting. But Ethan wasn't afraid of him. Now that you've agreed, why shouldn't you go? Li Xinjian asked again. Brother Chen, do you still want to go? How about you not go this time? And we can find a chance to get together privately if we have good relationships. Ethan refused directly. Why not? Just because of that guy, David. Seeing how persistent he was, Li Xinjian had no choice but to say, okay, tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the Earl of the East Sea Hotel. Good. Then Ethan hung up the phone. Have a good night. The top management of Meisher Mike was shocked and held a video conference overnight. There is a gentleman named Ethan who invested $300 million at one time and acquired 30% of our shares. I heard that Mr. Lin is only 20 years old and a freshman at Tonghai University. The next day, the morning sunlight shone through the gaps in the curtains and onto Ethan's face. He picked up the phone from the bedside and saw that it was only 6 o'clock. So after getting up, washing up, I went outside for a run. Morning exercise and breathing fresh air are always good for your health. I just ran a few steps when someone called me from behind. Ethan looked back and saw that it was Lily, who was also jogging in the morning. At this moment, she was wearing a slim sportswear that perfectly outlined her graceful figure. You are also doing morning exercises. What a coincidence. Lily ran over, a little breathless. Because of the exercise, Lily's cheeks were slightly red without makeup, and even the little hair on her forehead was slightly wet with sweat. It is said that most beauties rely on makeup, and after removing their makeup, you can't tell whether they are human or ghost. But Lily is a real beauty. She looks so beautiful even without makeup. Ethan smiled. What a coincidence. The two ran side by side. Lily raised her eyebrows slightly. Do you also have the habit of morning exercise? No, I just got up early today and felt like running. Normally, I just do some weights in the gym. Ethan said honestly. Lily smiled and glanced at Ethan, seeing his abdominal muscles and muscular biceps faintly visible under his slightly sweaty white t-shirt. Lifting weights? No wonder you have such a good figure. Very manly. Ethan was slightly embarrassed. Ah, do I smell? As he said this, he sniffed himself. Seeing Ethan's silly look, Lily giggled out loud. I don't mean you smell. I mean you have a great body and are extremely masculine. Ethan scratched his head embarrassedly. Oh, so that's how it is? Lily giggled again. Little brother, why are you so innocent and cute? You know, I can eat you till there's nothing left even without any seasoning. Chapter 31. Sister Lily is terrible. Ethan was confused. He is innocent and cute? What adjective is this? Sister Ailey, please stop teasing me. I can't stand being teased. Ethan said helplessly. A fox is indeed a fox. It even wants to eat him up completely? Having said that, it's still unclear who will take all the spoils. After running a few laps, Lily invited Ethan to have breakfast at her villa. Ethan had no choice but to go along. In the kitchen, Ethan sat at the dining table, watching Lily busying herself in the kitchen. Sister Ari, do you need my help? Ethan asked. Lily said without turning her head. Forget it. You are a guest. How can you let a guest take action? After saying this, she turned around and smiled slyly. Actually, I'm afraid you'll blow up my kitchen, huh? Ethan was confused. Is he that scary? Even though what he cooks may not be very delicious, it's still edible, right? Then Lily said, I'm just kidding. Just sit and wait for a while. It will be ready soon. Just a joke again. However, it's never boring to be with Lily. She is beautiful, has a good figure, loves to joke, and is quite interesting. Having said that, this scene really looks like a young couple with the girlfriend busy in the kitchen and the boyfriend crying out for food. If Lily became his girlfriend, based on her queenly personality, this scene suddenly appeared in Ethan's mind. Lily raised her index finger under his chin and raised the corner of her mouth slightly. Little guy, you finally fell into my hands. Ethan was startled by the thought and quickly picked up the glass of water on the table and took a big sip. So scary. Cowardly. At this time, Lily had already come up with 2 beautifully presented steak pasta dishes and 2 glasses of milk. Ethan couldn't help but look at Lily twice. He didn't expect Lily to be so good at cooking. I wanted to drink with you, but then I thought you still had to go to class and I had to go to the company, so I changed to milk. Lily sat down while speaking, then looked at Ethan and asked, Are you used to drinking milk? If not, can I get you some juice? Ethan nodded. I'm used to it. Don't bother. Lily looked at Ethan with a sharp gaze. Try it and see if it tastes good? Ethan picked up a small piece of pasta and put it in his mouth. His eyes instantly lit up. Soft, chewy, and full of flavor. He couldn't help but give a thumbs up. 666. Delicious. Thumbs up. Lily squinted her eyes and smiled, her peach blossom eyes forming a crescent shape. As long as you like it. Then, Ethan's cell phone rang. Ethan picked up the phone and pressed the answer button while eating noodles. Hello, who is this? A deep male voice came from the other end of the phone, very respectful. Hello, Mr. Lin. I'm the legal director of Meisher Mike. My name is Chun Lin. Hearing this, Lily looked up at Ethan, somewhat puzzled. Ethan, the legal director of Meisher Mike? Could it be? Thinking of this, Lily was shocked. Ethan responded calmly. Oh, Director Chen. Chun Lin continued. After you acquired 30% of our shares in Meisher Mike last night, we held an emergency high-level meeting. We wanted to contact you last night, but we were afraid of disturbing your rest. So we called you now. Excuse me. When are you free to come over and complete the handover procedures? With a click, the chopsticks in Lily's hand fell directly onto the table, and she looked at Ethan with surprise in her beautiful eyes. Chapter 32, The Thousand-Year Fox. Acquired another 30% of the shares of Meisher Mike? What kind of monster is Ethan? Ethan glanced at Lily calmly, then said, At noon? I should be free at noon. The person on the other end of the phone quickly said, Okay, then all of us, the gourmets and guests, are waiting for your presence. After hanging up the phone, Ethan continued to eat his delicious pasta. I have to say, Lily's cooking skills are really good and the steak was fried to perfection. Lily hesitated several times before finally asking, You acquired another 30% of Gourmet Foods shares? Ethan nodded. Well, I just bought it. Smoothly? The corners of Lily's mouth twitched a few times, and the pasta in front of her suddenly didn't smell good anymore. Are you going to let people live? Are you a monster? Lily asked. Ethan looked innocent. Why do you say that? I'm just an ordinary person. Ordinary people? First, she spent a huge amount of money to buy the Yunshuijian, the king of Shui and Yaja building, and then injected 500 million cash flow into her jiaqing at one time. Now she has acquired 30% of the shares of Meisher Mike. And you still call yourself an ordinary person? Then Ethan grinned. It's not me who's evil, it's you. Lily raised her eyebrows slightly, a little confused. Why? Ethan said, I think you should be called Fox. That suits you better. Lily was a little stunned, but she reacted quickly. Since you said I'm a fox, will you take me in? Ethan finished the last bite of pasta on his plate and burped. You are a 1,000-year-old fox. I'm not experienced enough. Compared to you, I am still too young. Lily covered her mouth and smiled. In that case, how about I wait for you to finish your training? Ethan was slightly stunned and laughed awkwardly twice. Sister Ari, you are joking again. Lily held her chin with one hand and pouted slightly. Because you are so cute. I like to joke with you. Ethan smiled and checked the time. It's getting late, I should go back. Then he stood up and said, Thank you for your hospitality, Sister Ailey. I'll treat you to dinner later. Lily smiled and said, Okay, then I'll be waiting for your meal. Ethan walked to the door and suddenly turned back with a sly smile. From now on, I will call you Ollie, the Lee of Fox. Lily was slightly stunned, and when she came to her senses, Ethan had already left. Ari? Ah, interesting. Lily murmured, the corners of her mouth slightly raised. For the first time, she felt that the adjective fox spirit was quite cute. Here, Ethan just found a parking spot and walked to the bottom of the Gourmet Food and Beverage Company building when an elite man in a suit and tie came up to him. He had long hair, which he tied into a small braid at the back of his head. Ethan just felt that he looked familiar. Wasn't this the uncle who was mistaken for the owner of his Rolls-Royce Phantom in the breakfast shop that day? Behind him, there were several men also dressed in suits. Mr. Lin? I'm Chun Lin, the one who called you this morning. Ethan nodded. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Chun Lin was somewhat flattered and said quickly, No, Mr. Lin is joking. Unexpectedly, the new major shareholder of their company is so young and has such a good temper. Then, Ethan followed Chun Lin into the building. Mr. Lin, do you want to go to the VIP reception room to rest, or start the handover ceremony directly? Chun Lin bowed slightly and asked respectfully. Ethan thought for a moment and said, Let's start the handover ceremony right away. I have something else to do later. I have to go to the Earl Hotel to attend a high school reunion later. Besides, he was not familiar with these people, and if he stayed in the VIP room, he would inevitably have to exchange pleasantries with them. He doesn't like such occasions. Chun Lin said quickly. Okay. The handover ceremony was completed quickly, and Ethan left without staying. The chairman, general manager, and other senior executives directly escorted Ethan to the door. Ethan was about to drive away when he saw a beautiful girl live streaming next to her car. "Look, this is my boyfriend's car. Rolls-Royce Phantom. Isn't it awesome?" "Damn, audience. Send a few rockets, and I'll show you the perspective of the co-pilot of a Rolls-Royce Phantom." "Huh. What? My boyfriend went shopping for me. Of course he's not here." Ethan was a little helpless, folding his arms and watching her. The beautiful woman also noticed Ethan's presence. She rolled her eyes, turned on the rear camera, and aimed it at Ethan. "Look, this pervert has been staring at me with lustful eyes. Oh, I'm so scared." Chapter 33, Can You Give Me Away? "Ethan? Is he a pervert? Oh my God." I originally wanted to wait for her to leave before driving. There were suddenly more comments in the live broadcast room. "Anchors, be careful. There are perverts every year, but this year there are especially many. Don't be afraid. Anchor, didn't your boyfriend who drives a Rolls-Royce Phantom go out to buy something for you? Ask him to come back and protect you. It's so hard to be a live streamer these days. I even encountered a pervert when I was live streaming outdoors." Ethan looked at her silently. "You're calling me a pervert?" The female anchor glared. "You're not a pervert. So why were you staring at me with lustful eyes just now?" Ethan laughed angrily. "That's because you blocked my way. You're talking nonsense. Who's blocking?" Suddenly, as if she realized something, she swallowed back the words she was about to say and looked at Ethan in shock. Ethan silently took out the car keys, walked towards the Rolls-Royce Phantom, opened the door, and got in. The female anchor was dumbfounded, and the comments in the live broadcast room exploded. "Anchor, Anchor, didn't you say that this car belonged to your boyfriend? How did it become this pervert's? Could this pervert be your boyfriend? If you don't need your eyes, you can donate them to people in need." It's obvious that the anchor used someone else's car to show off and slandered the owner of the car as a pervert, and then got slapped in the face. This anchor is so unlucky, isn't he? He's pretending to be cool with the car owner. I just want to ask, Anchor, does your face hurt? Ethan rolled down the window and looked at the anchor. "Can you please make way?" The female anchor had a dazed look on her face and mechanically stood aside to make way for the Rolls-Royce. Ethan stepped on the accelerator and drove off with a bang, raising a cloud of dust. The female anchor suddenly became covered in dust. She said quickly, "I feel a little dizzy, so I'm going to log off now." After saying this, he hurriedly ended the live broadcast and was completely devastated. "It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing." Earl Hotel, a VIP room. Several men and women sat down together, talking and laughing. Li Xinjian looked at his phone. "It's already 7:30. Why hasn't Brother Chen come yet?" A man came over with a glass of red wine and sat opposite Li Xinjian. "This person is David." "Why? Ethan hasn't come yet. Is he afraid to come?" he said with contempt, smiling. When he said this, Xiaohe, who was sitting in the corner, couldn't help but prick up her ears. "Ethan, he's really not coming?" Li Xinjian glanced at him unhappily. "Drink your wine and shut up. If Brother Chen says he's coming, he's definitely coming." David was not annoyed by Li Xinjian's rebuke and still had a smiling face. "I heard that Ethan is now pretending to be an old man." The photos he posted on WeChat Moments were immediately recognized as fake wine. TSK, what a slap in the face," Li Xinjian said angrily. "How do you know that their wine is fake? Besides, what does it have to do with you? You live by the sea. Why do you care so much?" At this time, Zhou Qian smiled and sat next to David, hugged his arm intimately, and looked at Li Xinjian. "What? You're embarrassed to drink fake wine and act cool, but you're embarrassed to let people talk about it?" Li Xinjian frowned, too lazy to waste words with the two of them. So he stood up and sat on the other side, just opposite Xiaohe. Xiaohe couldn't help but ask, "Li Xinjian, Ethan, will he really come?" She didn't want to attend this class reunion in the first place. If she hadn't heard that Ethan was coming, she wouldn't have bothered to come and join in. Li Xinjian looked at Xiaohe deeply and said slowly, "I will come. Maybe something delayed him on the way." Xiaohe nodded, looking a little dazed. And David, while holding Zhou Qian's slender waist, kept glancing in the direction of Xiaohe. In fact, he has always liked Xiaohe. If Xiaohe's mind was not completely on Ethan, he would not have settled for second best and been with Zhou Qian. Compared with Zhou Qian, Xiaohe is very different. This time, he just wanted to let Xiaohe understand that he, David, was 100 times better than Ethan. Xiaohe will definitely see his shining point. As he was thinking about this, Zhou Qian in his arms had already peeled a grape and put it to his mouth. David opened his mouth and ate it, then pinched Zhou Qian's face twice. On the other side, Ethan just arrived at the hotel entrance, but there was no parking space. Ethan found a temporary parking spot at the door. As soon as he got out of the car, a security guard came over. "Hello, sir. You can't park here." Ethan was slightly startled, took out his wallet, took out a few bills from it, and handed them to him. "Can you please be flexible? If there is a car leaving, please let me know, and I will come down and move the car immediately, okay?" Chapter 34, Sir. Please move your Rolls Royce. The security guard happily took a few bills and said with a smile that he would be notified when a car left. Ethan went straight into the hotel and walked towards the box that Li Xinjian mentioned. When he pushed the door open and came in, everyone in the box focused their attention on him. Xiaohi was delighted and wanted to say something, but she didn't open her mouth. She just looked at Ethan affectionately. Li Xinjian came forward and punched Ethan in the chest. "Brother, you are finally here. Some people can't wait any longer." As he said this, he deliberately glanced at David, who was sitting on the sofa. He saw Ethan. David smiled contemptuously, while Zhou Qian nestled into David's arms like a little bird, looking Ethan up and down with a look of disdain. "Long time no see, Ethan." David laughed. Ethan also replied, "Haven't seen you for a long time." Afterwards, Ethan and Li Xinjian and a few other good friends went to reminisce about the past. Seeing that Ethan ignored him, David felt a little unconvinced. He thought about it, took a bottle of red wine, and walked in front of Ethan. "Have a drink." Ethan sat on the sofa and looked at him with a slight smile on his face. "Okay." David poured Ethan a glass of red wine and sat opposite Ethan, and Zhou Qian followed. "Ethan, it seems like you've been doing pretty well lately. You've been drinking wine worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mine is only over $1,000 a bottle. I hope you don't mind it," David said deliberately. As soon as he said this, Zhou Qian beside him gave a fake smile and said, "What wine worth hundreds of thousands? That must be fake. It's probably just a few dozen bucks from Taobao, right?" David pretended to scold. "Qian, be careful with your words, Ethan. After all, he is our friend. How can you be so disregarding of his self-esteem?" Hearing this, Zhou Qian immediately nestled into David's arms. "Okay, dear, I won't say anything more. Don't be angry." As she said this, she rolled her eyes at Ethan. Ethan had written love letters to her before, but she was the most beautiful girl in the class after all, so how could she possibly fall for a poor boy like Ethan? Although Ethan is very handsome, can being handsome be enough to make a living? These days, money is the most important thing. And David, his father is the boss of a listed company and drives a BMW. He is her prince. Ethan watched the two perform silently. The singing of these two, one with the red face and one with the white face, is so awesome. The whole world owes them an Oscar. Li Xinjian couldn't stand it anymore and was about to speak up for Ethan when there was a commotion at the door. "Fuck, I'm telling you guys, I just went out to buy a pack of cigarettes and saw a Rolls-Royce Phantom parked at the door." The person who came in was Chow Han, who had just left. When they heard the words Rolls-Royce Phantom, everyone's eyes fell on him. Chow Han continued, "I'm serious. I'm not lying to you. That model of car, the bear car price is more than 6 million, but it's the top model. I guess it won't cost more than tens of millions. I don't know what kind of rich person can afford a car like this." David also sighed. "A Rolls-Royce Phantom is also my dream. I don't know when I can drive a car like that, but the BMW I drive now is pretty good." Then he looked at Ethan and asked with a smile, "Ethan, what car do you drive?" Zhou Qian snorted and said, "Honey, you should ask him if he bought a car. But judging from his appearance, I think he probably didn't buy one, right?" Just then a receptionist came in. "Excuse me, who is Mr. Ethan?" Ethan raised his hand. "I am." The receptionist said respectfully, "Sir, a car is leaving. Please move your Rolls-Royce. There is a parking space inside. You can park it there." Chapter 35, The car is rented. The entire box was silent and quiet. Ethan calmly took out his car keys and handed them to the receptionist. "Please move it for me. Thank you." "Yes." The receptionist took the car keys with both hands and left. Ethan blankly. The double R logo on the car key stung her eyes and made her mind go blank. David's face turned pale and blue, and he just wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. "It hurts so much when I get hit on the face." Li Xinjian was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. "Great, Brother Chin. You're driving a Rolls-Royce Phantom. Awesome." Xiaohi also unconsciously looked in the direction of Ethan, with a hint of surprise in her eyes. As far as she knew, Ethan's family was average, and it didn't seem like he could afford a Rolls-Royce Phantom. Other students also started discussing. I didn't expect that when Ethan went to college, his agent would drive a Rolls-Royce. Awesome. Has he become a nouveau riche? That's really embarrassing for David, isn't it? Didn't he just show off his BMW? Ethan drove a Rolls-Royce Phantom and didn't say a word. That's the difference. Ethan smiled and looked at Li Xinjian. It's just a means of transportation. No need to get so excited. Li Xinjian was stunned and silently gave him a thumbs up. Brother Chen, I won't lean on the wall. I will just obey you. Rolls-Royce Phantom. You actually casually call it a means of transportation? Invisible pretense. Look at Ethan, and then look at David, who can't help but show off his BMW. Isn't the contrast obvious enough? Feeling the strange looks from his classmates, David felt extremely embarrassed. Today was clearly his day to show off, but now he had completely become Ethan's foil. How could he accept this? Looking at Xiaohe again, her eyes were as tender as water, and she seemed to want to stick to Ethan, which made David feel angry. No matter how he looked at it, Ethan didn't look like someone who could afford a Rolls-Royce. Could it be? David suddenly smiled, and everyone's eyes were focused on David. David, what are you laughing at? Li Xinjian said unhappily. David ignored Li Xinjian and stared at Ethan. Ethan, I didn't expect you to become so vain after entering college. In order to show off at the class reunion, you even rented a Rolls-Royce Phantom. Wow! Everyone was shocked and looked at Ethan. Is Ethan's Rolls-Royce Phantom rented? Seeing that Ethan didn't refute, David smiled triumphantly. As he expected, Ethan's car was rented. Ethan, if you don't have a car, then you don't have a car. Not everyone here has a car. We're all old classmates. There is no need to act so pretentiously. David laughed. Zhou Qian next to her couldn't help but roll her eyes. I thought he was really driving a Rolls-Royce, but it turned out to be a rental. She said, how could a poor boy like Ethan afford a luxury car like a Rolls-Royce? Ethan shrugged helplessly. If you insist on thinking so, I can't help it. David chuckled. Are you admitting this? Ethan also laughed. Whatever you say. It's a waste of time to talk to these people who look down on others. Besides, who are they to me? Why should I care about what they think? Xiaohe, who was sitting in the corner, looked at Ethan with a hint of disappointment. She remembered that Ethan was not like this before. However, at this moment, the door of the box was knocked, and a middle-aged man in a suit and tie looked inside cautiously. His eyes fell on Ethan, his eyes lit up, and he immediately walked forward. Director Lin, you are here indeed. Chapter 36. Ethan is the major shareholder of the Earl's Hotel. Audience. Mr. Lin? Everyone's eyes fell on Ethan and the middle-aged man. Is the Mr. Lin this man is referring to Ethan? And Ethan was also confused. Who are you? The middle-aged man smiled and said, Director Lin, I'm Tan Guang, the person in charge here. Oh. Ethan nodded. What do you want from me? Tan Guang said quickly. Didn't you just buy 30% of the shares of Gourmet Food Group yesterday? Our Earl Hotel is owned by Gourmet Food Group. The higher-ups issued the document today. I just heard the receptionist mention your name, so I wondered if it was you. I came over to take a look, and it was you. Everyone was shocked and stunned. What did they just hear? Ethan bought 30% of the shares of Gourmet Food Group. Hearing this, Ethan chuckled twice, not knowing what to say. He doesn't want to show off. At this time, Tan Guang snapped his fingers outside, and a waitress came over immediately. General Manager, the presidential box is ready. Tan Guang nodded, and immediately looked at Ethan and said respectfully, Director Lin, this level of box is not worthy of your distinguished status. We have prepared the presidential box for you. Do you want to move to the presidential box with your friends? Ethan didn't make a decision, but looked at the people in the box. What do you think? Before Li Xinjian and the others could come to their senses, Zhou Qian spoke first. Go! Seeing that everyone's eyes were on her, Zhou Qian could only laugh awkwardly and explained. This is also their good intention. We can't let them down. Everyone's eyes turned contemptuous. Just mocked Ethan the most? Zhou Qian. I really don't know how she can still have the nerve to talk now. As expected, a tree without bark is doomed to die, and a person without shame is invincible. Tan Guang also said, This lady is right, Mr. Lin. You should stop hesitating, right? Ethan nodded. Okay, in that case, let's follow Mr. Tan. At this time, David quickly grabbed Zhou Qian's sleeve and whispered, Let's go first, don't stay and embarrass ourselves. Zhou Qian turned around and glared at him fiercely. Why are you leaving? If you want to leave, just go by yourself. After saying that, Zhou Qian left with the main force. David was stunned for a moment, then followed. Soon, everyone followed Tan Guang to a luxurious private room, which was many times better than the previous one. Wow, I didn't expect the Earl Hotel has a presidential room. It's worthy of being the president's room. It's luxurious enough. Awesome class. If it weren't for Ethan, we probably wouldn't have been able to come to a private room of this level in our lifetime. Hearing these voices, David's face became even uglier, because the VIP room just now was booked by him. At this time, Zhou Qian suddenly interrupted. I've always thought Ethan was extraordinary, but I didn't expect that he would be right. He became a major shareholder at the age of 20. He even drives a Rolls-Royce. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's faces turned strange. Hiss. The corners of Ethan's mouth twitched a few times. He had seen shameless people, but he had never seen anyone so shameless. Seeing this, David gave Zhou Qian a warning look. Zhou Qian glared at him impatiently. David, look at Ethan, then look at you. This is the difference. And David's face darkened instantly, and he asked, Zhou Qian, what do you mean? Zhou Qian sneered. David, I'm telling you, I want to break up with you. Don't bother me anymore. Everyone sat aside and watched the two people quarreling silently. David was almost furious. He pointed at Zhou Qian and kept calling her you for a long time but couldn't say a word. Zhou Qian walked directly in front of Ethan and smiled sweetly. Ethan, I'm single again. Ethan touched his nose. Oh, but what does this have to do with me? Zhou Qian covered her mouth and laughed, saying coquettishly, how can it not matter? This means that you have another chance. Chapter 37, The Love Letter is a Prank. Ethan? Everyone was shocked. What is going on? Ethan laughed dryly twice. I don't know what you're talking about. After saying this, Ethan wanted to find Li Xinjian to save himself. And David on the side exploded. Zhou Qian, you're actually going to cuckold me in front of me? Hearing this, Zhou Qian said impatiently, why are you green-hatting? I just broke up with you. Break up? Do you understand? Can you please stop stopping me from pursuing true love? It's impossible between us. Pursuing true love? David was so angry that his face turned green. Afterwards, Zhou Qian stopped paying attention to David and looked at Ethan. Ethan, let me tell you the truth. Over the years, I've always liked you. I told you those words that hurt you because I wanted you to cheer up and work hard. Look, isn't it working now? This proves that what I said was right. Everyone was dumbfounded. Zhou Qian's clever operation refreshed their three views. It was the first time they had met someone who could describe shamelessness in such a pure and elegant way. David also felt ashamed and had no face to stay there, so he fled. Ethan laughed dryly twice. Don't be ridiculous. Zhou Qian strikes while the iron is hot. Ethan, I like you and you like me. Why can't we be together? Ethan's face was full of question marks. I like you? How come I don't know that? I don't have such strong tastes. Hearing this, Zhou Qian said shyly, have you forgotten? When we were in high school, you handed me a love letter. Hearing this, Xiaoyi looked at Ethan suddenly. Hand over a love letter? Could it be that Ethan likes Zhou Qian's type? Now Ethan was even more confused. Handing over a love letter? How come I didn't know that? Zhou Qian pretended to hit Ethan's chest. Hate it. What is there to be embarrassed about? You still refuse to admit it. Ethan suddenly got goosebumps all over his body and quickly took a few steps back to distance himself from Zhou Qian. At this time, Li Xinjian raised his hand weakly. I have a say in this matter. For a moment, Li Xinjian became the focus of the entire box. It's like this, that love letter was a prank between us brothers, and Ethan didn't know about it. Ethan, Li Xinjian, fuck you. Everyone suddenly realized. So that's how it is. No wonder. Xiaoyi also breathed a sigh of relief. But Zhou Qian was struck by lightning and looked incredulous. No, it's impossible. It's not like that. Zhou Qian's face turned pale as she murmured softly. Li Xinjian scratched his head embarrassedly. It's been so many years since this happened. If Zhou Qian hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten about it. The implication was that it was just a prank, but Zhou Qian kept it in mind. Zhou Qian staggered and her face turned pale. Seeing the strange looks from her former classmates, she finally couldn't help it and ran out crying. Seeing this, Xiaoyi suddenly felt very happy. After the two annoying people left, everyone felt that the air in the box became a lot fresher. Soon, delicious dishes were served. General Manager Tan Guang also sent someone to deliver a few bottles of fine wine. Apart from the little episode between David and Zhou Qian, this class reunion was still a great success. After eating and drinking, Ethan was ready to pay the bill, but Tan Guang gave him a free meal. Who dares to let the major shareholders of the head office pay for it? Even if you give him 100 more courages, he wouldn't dare to do it. Afterwards, the classmates left one after another, and Ethan found a designated driver. While waiting for the designated driver, Xiaohi walked over here. Long time no see. You are getting better and better. Ethan smiled. As a human being, you always have to move forward. You can't go back in time, right? Xiaohi also smiled bitterly. Yes, everyone is going up, but they are still climbing the slope, while you have already reached the top of the mountain, enjoying the scenery. I'm afraid I'm not worthy of you. Xiaohi kept this sentence in her heart and dared not say it out loud. When she was pursuing Ethan before, Ethan always avoided her, so she had to watch Ethan silently in the dark and like him silently. Soon someone came to pick up Xiaohi. Xiaohi got in the car and looked at Ethan reluctantly. Then I'll go back first, and we'll get together again if there's a chance. Ethan nodded. Good. Xiaohi left, and Ethan felt a bit confused. A quick cell phone ring rang out. It was the designated driver. After answering the phone, Ethan noticed that the person on the other end was a young lady. After meeting, Ethan was surprised. Sutao. Chapter 38, I can't afford to pay for it even if I sell it. Who else could this girl wearing a light blue Lolita princess dress be but Su Tao? As for Emma, it would be better for Ethan to believe that the sun can rise from the west than to let him believe that she dares to come out so late to drive. She saw Ethan. Su Tao was also shocked. Lin 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 Chin? Did you call the designated driver? Ethan looked around and saw that he was the only one waiting. So he said, although I can't believe it's such a coincidence, but it's true. Looking at the Rolls-Royce Phantom, Su Tao couldn't help swallowing. You let me drive this Phantom? Ethan folded his arms and smiled. What else? Su Tao clasped her hands together, wanting to cry, but unable to do so. Brother, please forgive me. If I accidentally bump into you, you won't be able to pay for it even if you sell me off. Ethan shook his phone. If you refuse, I will give you a bad review. Su Tao, big bad guy. There was no choice but to carefully sit in the driver's seat and fasten her seatbelt. As if remembering something, Su Tao said quickly, You big bad guy, let me make it clear first. If I accidentally scratch it, I can't afford to pay for it. She is just a designated driver. Is it easy for her to drive such an expensive car? Crying, Ethan looked her up and down and said, Isn't it said that 9 out of 10 loli are rich and one lives in a beachfront villa? You can't afford to pay. Hearing this, Su Tao immediately revealed a pitiful expression. If I were a rich loli, could I still come out as a designated driver? As she spoke, her hands were shaking slightly as she touched the steering wheel. Ethan felt a little scared when he saw this. How about I do it? I thought Su Tao would agree directly, but I didn't expect her to refuse on the spot. No, you've been drinking, and you reek of alcohol. As she spoke, she seemed to remember something, and took out a small box of yogurt from her bare bag and stuffed it into Ethan's hand. Here, I'll give you some yogurt to protect your stomach after drinking. You're a big drunkard. Ethan was somewhat surprised. Huh? I didn't expect you to be so thoughtful. Su Tao glanced at him proudly and started driving seriously. Along the way, other cars were very far away from them. Su Tao was a little confused at first, but she soon understood. If an ordinary person accidentally scratches such an expensive car, he might have to prepare to sell his house, right? It turns out that driving a luxury car is not as scary as you imagined. Soon, we arrived at the entrance of Shui and Yaju. Or, I'll take you here and you can drive in by yourself. Su Tao looked at Ethan and asked. Ethan smiled. Are you so irresponsible as a designated driver? Su Tao snorted angrily and drove the car in. Do you believe that I can make your luxury car wrecked? See if you dare to bully me again. Su Tao bared her fangs and threatened. Ethan leaned back in his chair leisurely. You can try. Ethan with some surprise. Then, Ethan said leisurely, as long as you can afford it, or are prepared to work as my nanny for the rest of your life and pay the compensation. Ethan angrily. I knew you were a bad guy with bad intentions. When they arrived at Yunshuijian and saw the exterior of the extremely luxurious villa, Su Tao was so surprised that her mouth opened into an O shape. Big bad guy, is this really your home? Ethan raised his eyebrows slightly. What else? Suddenly thinking of a question, Ethan asked. So, how are you going to get back? Su Tao was stunned for a moment, then immediately took out her cell phone and found that it was already past 10 o'clock. It's bad. Our school's curfew is over. If you go back now, you'll be punished. Su Tao suddenly felt like crying, but had no tears. Ah, I want to stay in a hotel. It's too expensive. If I had known this, I wouldn't have accepted your order. Ethan couldn't help but laugh. Why are you so stupid? Don't you know how to check the time before accepting the order? As he said that, he rubbed her head. Ethan angrily. Don't touch my bun. Ethan just found it funny. Okay, why don't you stay at my place? Chapter 39, Big Bad Guy. This is really your home. Ethan with a vigilant look. You big bad guy. What do you want to do? Ethan frowned and poked her forehead with his index finger. I really don't know what's going on in your head every day. I have plenty of rooms at home. You can sleep anywhere you want except my master bedroom. Ethan paused and continued. Or you can stay in a hotel. Su Tao looked Ethan up and down several times. Even though I kept calling him a bad guy, he didn't seem like a bad guy. When Su Tao thought about the high cost of staying in a hotel, which could be used to buy a few skirts, she felt very disappointed. Well, that's great, Su Tao said weakly. As soon as she entered, Su Tao was amazed by the environment inside. Wow, isn't this the kind of mansion you can only see in TV dramas? This is very expensive, right? As she spoke, Su Tao looked at Ethan and said cautiously, Big bad guy, can I just take a look? Ethan chuckled. Calling me a bad guy? Is that so insincere? Hearing this, Su Tao's face suddenly became a little conflicted. So, what should I call you? She tilted her head and thought for a while, but couldn't think of what to call him. Ethan sat down on the sofa slowly and said teasingly, Call me brother and let me hear it. Su Tao's face turned red, and she hesitated for a while before calling out Brother Ethan. Ethan smiled happily and waved to her. Go ahead. Hearing this, Su Tao glared at Ethan, then ran away skipping and jumping, her two ponytails swinging happily. It really tempts people to commit crimes. Su Tao looked around, as if she had seen something new, but she didn't dare to touch it. Who knows if she can afford to pay for the things here if they are damaged? After a long while, Su Tao had enough of shopping and sat down on the sofa, swinging her legs in white tights. Ethan had already changed into his home clothes and came out. He took out a glass from the sterilizer and poured her a glass of water. Su Tao took the water with a smile, revealing two small canine teeth. I didn't expect you to be so thoughtful. You knew I was thirsty. Ethan smiled, shook his head helplessly, and said nothing. Su Tao looked around and asked, Are you the only one living in such a big villa? I'm alone for now, Ethan said calmly. Su Tao raised her eyebrows slightly. Temporarily? What do you mean? Ethan smiled. It's just temporary. Think about it. If I have a girlfriend in the future, won't she be with me? Hearing this, Su Tao's eyes rolled. So you don't have a girlfriend yet? Ethan nodded. Su Tao was delighted. In that case, then sister, does the chance still seem pretty good? No. I have to ask my sister to help me when I get back. Seeing her eyes rolling around, Ethan teased. Why? You want to be my girlfriend? Su Tao was stunned, and it took her a long time to react. She said angrily, No way. You're such a bad guy. Who would want to be your girlfriend? She snorted heavily, picked up the glass of water on the table, and took a big gulp. Ethan was stunned for a moment, with a puzzled expression on his face. Why are you looking at me like that? Sutaocho. Ethan glanced at her, pointed at the water cup in her hand, and said quietly, What I just drank was the water in my cup. Su Tao looked at the cup in her hand and on the table. There was a faint lipstick mark on both, which was a sign of being abused by her. She just drank the water that Ethan drank. Does this count as an indirect kiss? The scene was silent for a few seconds. Boom! Su Tao put the water cup heavily on the table and said calmly, What's the big deal? It's already 0202. She pretended to be indifferent on the surface, but the slightly red tips of her ears betrayed her. Ethan smiled slightly. I didn't say anything. Ethan was about to go upstairs to rest when he heard Su Tao's pitiful voice from behind. Bad guy, I'm hungry. Is there anything to eat? Ethan thought about it and realized that he hadn't been to the supermarket in the past few days and there was no food left at home. Then I'll take you out for hot pot. There happens to be one nearby that's open pretty late. Ethan inquired. Hearing the word hot pot, Su Tao quickly refused. No, I don't eat hot pot. This is a rule I set for myself. It makes me fat. Half an hour later, Ethan looked at Su Tao, who was eating heartily across from the hot pot, and fell into deep thought. Don't you say you don't eat hot pot? And you made up your own rules. Chapter 40, Woman's Strange Creature. Su Tao's hand holding the chopsticks froze for a moment, and she smiled awkwardly. Rules are dead, but people are alive. We need to decide whether to implement them based on the actual situation. Besides, aren't rules meant to be broken? Besides, I just thought about it carefully. How can I have the energy to lose weight if I don't eat enough? Ethan shook his head helplessly. He thought Su Tao didn't look fat, so he didn't know why she always wanted to lose weight. It seems that women, no matter whether they are fat or not, are obsessed with losing weight. It is really hard to understand. I don't understand. Soon, after Su Tao had eaten and drunk her fill, Ethan took her towards Shui and Yeju. Su Tao said a little embarrassedly, "Big bad guy, give and take. I'll treat you to a meal in the future too." Ethan chuckled. "Then I'll make a note of this meal." Su Tao snorted proudly. At this time, the two had already walked to the door of Shui and Yaju. The security guard was the one who led Ethan last time. When he saw the two of them, he quickly greeted Ethan. "Mr. Lin." Hearing this, Ethan nodded at him, then took Su Tao away. "This should be Mr. Lin's girlfriend, right? She's so beautiful." A small discussion came from behind. Su Tao stiffened and looked at Ethan. But Ethan seemed to have heard nothing and asked, "What's wrong?" Su Tao shook her head absent-mindedly. When returning to Yunshuijian, Ethan left a message. "I'm going to go back and rest. You can choose any room here except my master bedroom. Each room has an independent bathroom and disposable toiletries." After saying that, he went straight to the master bedroom on the second floor. The next day, Ethan forgot that Su Tao was still living here and went downstairs directly wearing a loose bathrobe. Su Tao was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window when she heard some noise behind her and turned around subconsciously. "Voulez-vous?" Lin, Ethan, why don't you put on your clothes properly?" Su Tao quickly covered her eyes and turned her back to Ethan. What did she just see? Ethan was wearing a loose bathrobe, tied casually, and his abdominal muscles were faintly visible. "Ah, she is not clean anymore." Ethan looked at himself in confusion. Was there anything wrong with this? It's already 20202. However, seeing Su Tao's reaction, Ethan had no choice but to go back and change his clothes. Su Tao sat on the sofa, her heart pounding as she thought of the scene just now. So scary. Seems a bit handsome? As soon as this thought came out, Su Tao was shocked. No, she couldn't do this. At this time, Ethan had already changed his clothes and came out. "Come on, I'll take you to breakfast and then I'll take you to school." Su Tao raised her head and looked at Ethan resentfully, said "oh" lightly, and followed him. After breakfast, Ethan first sent her to the Donghai Conservatory of Music. Tonghai University and Tonghai Conservatory of Music are almost adjacent to each other and not far away. A Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped in front of the music conservatory. Everyone around looked sideways, wanting to see who this luxury car belonged to. The car door opened and Su Tao got out of the car. Not far away, several of Su Tao's roommates were so shocked that their jaws dropped to the ground. "Su Xiaodao? Is it her? That car logo is a Rolls-Royce. She didn't come home last night. Did she hook up with a rich guy?" Shocked, I didn't expect that Su Xiaodao, a straightforward woman like her, would also have a happy ending. Chapter 41. Su Tao. No, not Emma. Su Tao had just said goodbye to Ethan and had only taken 2 steps when she was surrounded by several roommates. "Su Xiaodao, is the man driving the luxury car just now your boyfriend?" Hearing this, Su Tao shook her head like a rattle. "No, don't talk nonsense. He is not my boyfriend. We are just friends." But the roommate snorted and said disdainfully, "You didn't come home last night, and he sent you here this morning. Are you staying at his place?" Hearing this, Su Tao, feeling guilty, stammered, not knowing what to say. "Su Xiaodao, just tell me, isn't that right?" The roommate continued to ask. Su Tao felt like crying but had no tears, so she just nodded. "Look, we found us. That's right, you actually want to hide it from us. My Su Xiaodao is awesome. Don't forget us when you become rich. Don't forget us, Jimei, in the future." Su Tao raised her head and looked towards the sky in silence. On this side, Ethan had already arrived in the classroom. Ethan, who was playing with his phone, suddenly heard a burst of noise. He subconsciously looked up and saw Su Tao, who was wearing a cute Lolita dress. No, that evasive look is from Emma. Emma? The sun rose from the west today? The classmates around were talking in low voices, but they all praised Emma for her good looks. Emma looked embarrassed, quickly found Ethan's position, and walked over. Lin, Ethan, can you move a seat inside?" Ethan said, "Oh," and sat inside. Emma also sat down in Ethan's previous seat. She glanced at her skirt, then at Ethan, her eyes flashing with confusion. She wanted to say something, but in the end she pursed her lips and said nothing. Ethan also noticed her little action and thought it was a little strange, but he still praised her sincerely. "You look really good today." Hearing this, Emma's eyes lit up and she asked cautiously, "Really?" Ethan nodded and glanced at the classmates around him. "Look, everyone's eyes are sharp, and they are all praising your beauty." Emma lowered her head and smiled. "As long as you like it." "What?" She said this in a low voice, and Ethan didn't hear it clearly. But Emma was like a frightened deer. I didn't say anything." Ethan gave her a suspicious look and said nothing. In this class, Emma hardly listened at all. Her attention was completely on Ethan, and Ethan had no idea that he had become an arsonist. After class, Ethan just got downstairs and ran into a girl with the documents in her hands scattered all over the floor. "Senior song?" Ethan was slightly surprised. Hearing Ethan's voice, Clara raised her head slightly and looked at Ethan. "It's you." Ethan quickly squatted down and helped Clara pick up the documents on the ground. For some reason, Clara looked very bad and dazed. "She's completely different from what I saw before. Are you okay?" Ethan couldn't help but ask. Clara was slightly startled. Then she showed a bitter smile. "Fine. Are you really okay?" Ethan was a little skeptical. Hearing this, Clara sighed, as if she had made a decision, and looked at Ethan. "Ethan, can you walk with me?" "Good." Ethan nodded. He had a hunch that something had definitely happened to Clara. In any case, Clara was the first person he met at Tonghai University and was usually pretty nice to him. Now seeing her like this, he was also a little worried. The two walked on the path in the campus. The cool autumn breeze blew down a gust of maple leaves. "Senior, just say what you want to say." Seeing Clara hesitate to speak, Ethan said. Hearing this, Clara sighed and said, "Forget it, it's no use talking about it. Something happened in her family's company. What's the point in telling Ethan? It's better not to cause unnecessary trouble to others." Chapter 42 Honda Shopping Mall has a new owner. Clara didn't want to say, and Ethan didn't dare to ask any more. At this time, the mechanical voice of the system sounded again. "Congratulations to the host for triggering the plot mission. Take the school beauty Clara out for a walk, and the reward is Donghai City Honda Shopping Mall." Ethan was slightly shocked. Honda Shopping Mall, located in the most prosperous golden area of Donghai City, has an astonishing daily turnover. He glanced at Clara and said comfortingly, "Look at you, you look so bad. Don't think about it for now. I'll take you out to relax." Clara was slightly startled and smiled. "Okay, thank you," Ethan said indifferently. "It's okay, you're welcome." There was still one class left, but Ethan simply skipped it and took Clara to the beach in his Rolls-Royce. The sky is blue, the sea is boundless, and the sea and the sky are one color. Clara's white dress fluttered, her hair flew, and she looked like an immortal. "How are you? Are you feeling better?" Ethan asked with a smile. Clara nodded and then said, "My father's company is going bankrupt." Ethan didn't say anything. Clara continued, "My father spent a lot of money to import a batch of high-quality clothing from abroad, but the cooperation with Honda department store fell through. After that, my father looked for several other department stores, but they all colluded with Honda. Now our company is in a dilemma." Hearing the words Honda Shopping Mall, Ethan was slightly surprised. "Are you talking about the Honda Shopping Mall in the prime location of Donghai City? Isn't it such a coincidence? Did the system reward me with this shopping mall just to let me save Clara?" Hearing this, Clara nodded. Ethan also nodded. "Okay, I understand." Hearing this, Clara looked at Ethan. "What do you know?" Ethan smiled slightly. "It's nothing. Trust me, it'll be fine." Clara wanted to ask something else, but after thinking about it, she decided not to ask. "Ethan, what does this mean?" After leaving the beach, Ethan took Clara out for dinner and then sent her back to school. When we returned to the villa, it was already 7 o'clock in the evening. Just when I was about to sit down and take a rest, my cell phone rang urgently. Ethan took out his cell phone and saw an unfamiliar phone number. "Hello, Mr. Lin. I'm the legal officer of Honda Shopping Center. You can call me Xiao Wu. It's like this. We have already prepared the property transfer certificate and other relevant documents. Please take a look. When are you free to come over to complete the handover procedures?" Ethan was a little surprised. Are they so efficient? Only a few hours have passed. "Let me see." As he spoke, Ethan took out his schedule, took a look, and found that he had no classes tomorrow. Tomorrow. Oh, cool. The next day, Honda Shopping Mall. Today, Honda was decorated with lights and colorful decorations, and gongs and drums were beating loudly. Even the road was covered with red carpets. and there was even a banner hung at the top of the door. Welcome the new boss. Passers-by were all surprised. New boss? Could it be that Hongda, the largest shopping mall in Donghai City, has a new owner? What? I just heard them say that the owner of Hongda Shopping Center has changed. Hasn't Hongda always been developing well? Why did it suddenly change its owner? Yeah, could it be that the bright and beautiful Hongda is actually riddled with holes on the inside? In the crowd, Sophia looked at the banner in front of her thoughtfully. She came to buy things with her two roommates today, but unexpectedly, she ran into Hongda, which had a new owner. What kind of person can buy the entire Hongda? At the same time, many men's eyes lingered on Sophia. Beautiful women are always eye-catching wherever they are. What's more, it's a beauty like Sophia. The two roommates next to Sophia felt a little unhappy when they saw Sophia becoming the center of attention. Lou Lily leaned close to Susan's ear and whispered, "Have you heard? Sophia is chasing after a freshman recently. I heard that he's the one who came to register by helicopter. Look at her. She dresses up beautifully every day. The one who reported in by helicopter? Didn't someone say that the helicopter was rented? Why did Sophia stick to it?" Susan was puzzled. Lou Lily glanced at Sophia and whispered, "I don't know. Didn't she make egg tarts in the dormitory last time? I wanted to have one, but she didn't give me any. I heard she gave them all to that junior student. Ah, she looks like this? This isn't her style." At this time, a Rolls-Royce Phantom came speeding and stopped at the entrance of Hongda Shopping Mall. The two of them immediately stopped whispering and looked at the luxury car with eyes full of love. Sophia frowned slightly. "Isn't this Ethan's car?" Moment Ethan got out of the car, Lou Lily and Susan were dumbfounded. "Ethan? How could it be him?" Chapter 43 Freshman. Sophia looked calm because she had just recognized Ethan's car. After a brief moment of surprise, Lou Lily's expression turned into contempt. He can even rent a helicopter, not to mention a luxury car. This Ethan is simply hopeless. He will do anything to pick up girls. He is simply shameless.